Hey guys, it's Gregory Iron, and we've got a great episode of the show for you today. And I'm very much looking forward to you hearing my conversation with legendary IPW professional wrestler Richie Rouge, famous on the internet for his time in IPW, but also did various things abroad, even did some jobs for some notable promotions, which we'll get into. And of course, he trained alongside Jumpin Jeff Farmer. Yep, the guy who took on Motley Cruz back in the day. We're going to dive into all of that, but one of the topics that we actually touch on in the intro to today's show with Aaron is we talk about jobbers or enhancement talent. And in a lot of ways, Richie Rouge was a job guy. He did do some jobs. But in talking to him, I quickly realized that he was much more than that. And in my discussion with Richie, both before we started recording and after, I realized that, and this is kind of what I was hoping for, we were going to find another side of the story. And I think in Richie's story, we discovered that there's a man who, while he left the business long ago, he's still incredibly passionate about professional wrestling. And that's something I understand. And I very much found myself talking to Richie and deep in conversation with Richie, much like I was with Dennis Stamp. And after we started recording the intro, Aaron mentioned that I didn't bring up Dennis in our discussions. So in post, I figured I would touch on my relationship with Dennis Stamp. And on March 13th, 2017, Dennis Stamp passed away suddenly. And I remember exactly where I was when I read the news. I was at the gym, and I was doing cardio on the elliptical. And I saw people posting R.I.P. Dennis Stamp, and most of all, I saw people posting about, I wonder if he's booked in heaven, and he's jumping on that big trampoline in the sky. And I understand. Dennis Stamp was very much known for his appearance in Beyond the Mat back in 1999. I mean, that was the documentary that sort of put wrestling documentaries on the map. And I remember running on that elliptical and reading all of these things that I don't think were malicious, or people didn't mean to be malicious about it, but they were sort of, in my mind, treating Dennis's death like a joke. And I kept running on the elliptical, and I was kind of determined to finish my workout, and then I wanted to write something about Dennis, pay tribute to him, but man, I just stopped in the middle of my workout, and I said, I have to do this now. Just something compelled me to write in that moment. And I remember going out to my car, and I just started writing. And so what I'm about to do is I'm going to read what I wrote for Dennis in that moment, and I think it still holds up. And so before I read this, I just want to say, Dennis, you were awesome, and I hope that this thing that I wrote on Facebook 4 years ago is a fitting tribute for you. Here we go. On February 20th, 2015, I had the honor and the privilege to wrestle Dennis, his first pro wrestling match since 1991. It was a 6-man tag team match. The Iron Curtain, that night consisting of myself, Jerry, and Benjamin Boone versus Dennis, Grado, and Dick Justice. Going over the match in the locker room, though we tried our best to hide it, we were absolutely smitten to be working with one of the stars of the famed Beyond the Mat documentary. I asked Dennis if it was okay if I said some stuff that he said in Beyond the Mat in a bad guy promo on the mic. He asked me what I had in mind, and verbatim, I started reciting just about every one of his lines from the movie from memory. He chuckled as some of the other guys chimed in with Dennis quotes as well. "You guys do Dennis Stamp better than I do," he said as he grinned from ear to ear. "Who's winning?" he asked. "You are, Dennis," I replied. "Oh, well, which one of these young men are getting the pin?" He looked over at Grado, then over to Dick in wonderment. "You're pinning me, Dennis," I told him. Dennis Stamp looked at me baffled and said, and I quote, "What? I'm winning and getting the pin? My God." Dennis was gleaming. Right before we went out, Dennis said, "Greg, please kick out right after 3. I don't want you to look weak losing to me." I nodded my head. I came to the ring and interrupted Dennis as he read a poem to the crowd. As I plagiarized nearly every word of his from beyond the mat, Dennis tried to hide his grin, but I saw it. Dennis got the hot tag leading towards the finish, and the absolute intense wrestling crowd erupted. For a few moments in 2015, nearly 70-year-old Dennis Stamp laid into myself and the Iron Curtain with punches as if it was at an AWA event in the 1970s. When you watch the footage, you can see it in his eyes. Dennis was home. After the bout, he shared many stories with myself and the guys and just kept thanking us for putting him over. Privately, as we chatted, he told me that I was a great wrestler. I responded by saying that, yeah, for a wrestler with cerebral palsy, I do my best. But I'll never forget. He said to me, "Oh, fuck that. You're not a great disabled wrestler. You're just a great wrestler." We exchanged phone numbers and chatted for a few hours on a few occasions since 2015. After he'd tell me stories, he'd always end our conversation thanking me for our match. And I'd always thank him for his incredibly kind words. That match that we had wasn't about me. It was about Dennis. I didn't care to lose to a man that could be my grandfather. It was about giving a man that lived and breathed wrestling one final moment in the sun, with his hand raised in victory. This was a man that after you interacted with him, you knew how passionate he had remained for wrestling after all these years. He missed the camaraderie in the locker room with the guys, and the roar of the crowd. For one night, AIW and the guys in my match were able to give him that one more time. In his final match, I took the pin from Dennis, and it meant the world to him. But today, it means just as much to me. To be able to create such a special moment for him was one of my greatest career and life highlights. Today, as I reminisce about him, my match with Dennis means that much more. To many fans, Dennis will be remembered most for being that guy jumping on a trampoline in a Speedo as he awaits the call. But to me, Dennis will be one of the kindest professional wrestlers I've ever met, with an undying passion for the industry, his family, and his granddaughter. Thank you, Dennis Stamp. I'll never forget you, my friend. If heaven is real, Dennis, you're booked.
Initiating podcast download. Prepare yourself. Put on your spandex. Lace up your boots. Wrap your wrists. Hide your razor blade. Head to gorilla position. Grease up your hair. Apply baby oil. Okay, apply more baby oil. Get into gimmick. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Have fun and be safe out there, brother. Welcome to I'm on Wrestling. Now your host, Gregory Iron.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Iron on Wrestling with Gregory Iron. I'm your host, Gregory Iron. This is episode 94. And boy, do we have a great episode for you today. I'm super pumped because our guest is someone that's been MIA in the wrestling community for a long time. He's an IPW legend, International Pro Wrestling. We're talking to Richie Rouge today. And oh my God, you're going to love this conversation with Richie Rouge. We find out where he's been, what he's up to. We talk about his career. We talk about his time in IPW. And, of course, we talk about some of the names of those that worked with him in IPW. Oh, what the heck is this? What's happening right now?
What the fuck is going on?
Oh, my God. Whoa, I'm being interrupted.
I'm not playing this music.
I didn't expect this at all.
I got Wu-Tang Clan queued up. What?
Oh, my gosh. Wow, you know what? This is a good song that I enjoy.
Turn it off.
It's completely royalty free. Wow.
Oh, come on. Are you doing this?
Yeah, what did I tell you? Hold on, let me bring the music down for you. Let me bring it down for you. Yeah, go ahead, get into your stupid line. Go ahead.
Pardon the interruption.
Yeah, because people
it's a line that everybody likes.
Oh, they love it. Yeah, they just love it. I told you.
I don't know that anybody will like that song. What's that song?
What's
that? Am I conducting a cooking class today? Is this a podcast about making meatballs?
What?
Chicken breast?
Listen, it's a podcast about Richie Rouge.
Lasagna?
And IPW. No, it's not about lasagna. Look.
Real G's move in silence like lasagna.
Shut the hell up for a second. I told you I'm starting to put the back catalog on YouTube, and I'm having problems because you, like an asshole, like I've told you a million times, you can't play copyrighted music on the show.
Copywritten.
Yeah.
Copyrighted.
Whatever. You know
Which
what I
one
mean.
is it?
Copyrighted.
I think it's copyrighted. I think you're right.
Okay. Well,
I think you're copyrighted. But you can't. Why'd you pick that song? And why do you give me that? Dude, you know what I like.
It's a good song.
Really?
Go out of your way to find songs that aren't copyrighted anymore, and then you can play them on the show. That's why I play covers at the end of every broadcast. Come on.
You're going to ruin my gimmick. You've already ruined my whole mojo for the show.
You better get it back up because it's going to be a fun show.
How can I get it up?
Well, we don't have a Blue Chew sponsorship, so I don't know.
Well, you know, I'm getting a little hurry down there.
Oh, well, that sounds like a problem.
Here, look.
No, I don't want to look.
How hairy is it right now?
I'm not looking.
No?
Not looking,
Are we going to do the spot now, or you want to do it later? You know what? It really pissed me off that you played that song.
I apologize.
That's dumb.
Well, why don't we talk about your hairy junk then?
Do you want to?
I thought you were maintaining it.
I had been, and I was letting it go for a little bit just to see. And then what I was planning on doing was I was going to, how do you say, have sex with a woman.
Okay.
And
that's how you would say it, I guess.
I was going to play Welcome to the Jungle on my phone when I was about to, enter.
Sure.
When I was taking off my clothes. And I thought it'd be cool. But it's kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Being hairy after you've been so smooth for so long.
Yeah.
And what do you think the difference is? Look at this right here.
Come on, man. Yeah,
what?
Look, listen, you should be using your manscaping tools. And when I talk about your manscaping tools, I'm talking about the Lawnmower 3.0.
Oh, you know what? I can't wait to use it tonight.
Well, how much time do you have when you're using it? I mean,
well, I can go, and I don't want to brag or anything, but I can go 90 seconds.
Well, I mean, that's a start, but if you were to up your game a little bit, when it comes to trimming, you can use the Lawnmower 3.0 for up to 90 minutes because that's how long
minutes?
it lasts. Yeah, it's pretty convenient.
Wow.
Yep, and of course it's got the 7,000 RPM motor with the quiet stroke technology, which is quite the convenience. And you could do it in the dark. So for some reason you didn't pay your bills this month and your electricity goes out, you got that little light on there that helps.
You know what? You don't even have to use it in the dark. It works perfectly with the light on because you need that extra light to make sure that you got every little morsel of hair.
Yeah.
It's perfect for that kind of use.
You know, if you want to use it in the shower, it's great for that too because it's waterproof.
Yeah, I like using it in the shower.
And you know what? I actually used it this past weekend to trim other parts of my body that wasn't my nutsack, not my face, because that's just weird. I did trim my stomach because I do show that off for professional wrestling. I even trimmed my chest hair a little bit, and it worked greatly for that. There was no scratches or nicks or anything like that.
Did
it
you
was
post
super
a picture
convenient.
online?
I could.
Please do.
All right, you weirdo. But I mean, I'm just letting you know that I am clean shaven. That's because of my manscaping tools. And guess what? I don't put this on my chest and stomach, but they do give you the ball deodorant, which is quite convenient for yourself after shaving.
It smells so good.
As well as the ball toner, which is good to apply really at any time you feel like you need to step it up a little bit. You know, maybe you're going out with a lady. Maybe you need a little bit of the ball toner.
Maybe your balls sag.
They're always going to sag.
Yeah, but when you get older, when you get to be my age.
Well, it's not going to pull them up any, but it'll make them feel fresh and clean.
Right, and that's what you want. You want any little advantage when you get to be my age.
Yeah, well, here's another little advantage you can get through us.
Little advantage?
Well,
what are you saying about
maybe
yourself?
a bigger advantage. Just by listening to Iron On Wrestling, we're going to give you the promo code PARDON. That's PARDON, PARDON. And you can save 20% off on any Manscaped purchases over at manscaped.com. And you're going to get free shipping. So use promo code PARDON, save 20%, get free shipping. It's the best way to support the show.
Oh, man. Let me tell you this, too. You said that you didn't want to shave your face with it.
Well, correct, because it has been on my balls.
Yes, but it's waterproof, bro.
What does that have to do with putting
just
it on
wash it.
Yeah,
After you get your balls, then you get your face.
Okay, I don't recommend you put it on your face even if you wash it, but if that's what you're into.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I've done it before.
All right, well.
I shaved somebody's head this week at work.
Wow.
Yeah, put it right on there.
Okay.
I shaved her head.
Anyways.
The back of her head.
Yeah, okay, I believe you. Just, God.
Do you want pictures?
Nope, use promo code
Do you want pictures
PARDON,
of me shaving my head?
Save 20% off, get free shipping. We appreciate you doing so. And, you talked about advantages.
Yeah.
One very popular skit in IPW was Doc Savage's Unfair Advantage. So he's one of my favorite characters in IPW, and we actually talked to Richie Rouge about a lot of those characters in IPW later today. We talk about Doc Savage, we talk about Motley Cruz, we talk about Wild Bill Ash, who incorrectly gets referred to as Bill Ass a lot of the time on the internet, which I find hilarious. Listen, IPW is one of those things that there is a lot of unintentional hilarity that comes out of it. But what I liked most about my interview with Richie that we're going to have later today is that you find out not only is he incredibly passionate about pro wrestling, but Aaron, when you talk to someone that understands pro wrestling and they just, I don't know, you're like planning a match or a segment with them and you just, you know right away whether they get it or they don't.
Right.
Richie Rouge gets it. And I think it's one of those things where with this interview, we have some laughs. He shares some great stories about a lot of guys, including Jumping Jeff Farmer. But what you're going to find out is that he's incredibly passionate and he just understands wrestling. And I want to change the perception about how some of these guys in IPW were looked at as.
Well, I'm going to be along for the ride here. This sounds great.
Yeah, it's going to be a great interview. And also
the any of the promos that we've seen on YouTube, and I'm not even getting into the matches yet.
Yeah.
The promos have been some of my favorite things that I've recently discovered.
Well,
with your help.
Yes. Well, just for the sake of those that might not know about international pro wrestling, the reason why you would know about it is Jumping Jeff Farmer, who we just alluded to. He sort of made IPW get a cult following over the years. If you've never heard the infamous Jumping Jeff Farmer promo, I'm going to play it for you right now.
we talk to Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. Let's go now to that interview. Folks, there's Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. Jeff, a while back, what a match you had with Motley.
Yep. Probably the hardest match I ever had in my life. But I don't like it when things aren't going my way. Motley Cruz, you turn the tables on me. You turn the tables in a wrong way. You've got me mad now. I've stood around. I've listened to everything you had to say. I've did everything necessary. But when you turn around and you backstab me one way or another, and you cheat me out of what's rightfully mine, that's when I get angry. Now I'm the one doing the challenging. I'm issuing a challenge to you, Motley Cruz. Get in the ring with me. This time, I'm going full force.
Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. Now let's go to the ring.
So that's just a sampling of IPW and the ridiculousness that comes along with it.
I got a question.
What?
Did any of these guys ever get work like in the Fed or down in Jim Crockett Promotions?
Well, you're going to have to wait to the interview with Richie. I mean,
yeah.
he might have done a little bit more than you would have expected.
Because I don't remember any of these names. I mean, Jeff Farmer I remember from when he was NWO Sting.
Okay, that's a different Jeff Farmer.
Just like there were two Stings, there's two Jeff Farmers.
Well, that having a name of Jeff Farmer doesn't seem like it's an impossibility. But
okay, well, you know, if you have the name Jeff Farmer, that's, what would you say, pretty basic name?
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
like Greg Smith.
Yeah, a lot of jobbers. You know, what were perceived as jobbers or that were jobbers have basic names.
What? So, and I'm glad you bring that up because, so again, in changing the perception of IPW, I think we're going to learn that what we saw in that promotion on YouTube in the 4-ish episodes that is available online, these guys were a lot more talented than maybe we give them credit for. Now, we could still look at some of the IPW stuff and laugh, but I think it's important to realize that a lot of these guys that maybe didn't do much or went on to do jobs, or a better term would be enhancement talent, you know, they really enhanced some of our most beloved characters within professional wrestling. So I think it's important today that we talk about some of the more famous jobbers in professional wrestling history, because I feel like sometimes they don't get enough credit.
Yeah, some of the more famous enhancement talents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, who do you want to talk
You
about?
said jobber. I would never use that word.
You literally started by saying jobbers.
Oh, yeah. You know, I hate when you're accurate. So if we're going to talk about enhancement talents, a couple that come to mind right away. My favorite tag team of all time. Bill and Randy, the Mulkey brothers. Let's start off hot.
I don't know if I even know the Mulkey brothers. For real.
I'm real mad at you right now.
Sorry, I don't know them.
You don't know the Mulkey brothers.
I feel like it sounds familiar, but I feel like I should know that.
All right, well, I feel like you should pause this right now, and then we're going to go watch a Mulkey brothers match.
Okay, we're back, and I looked at the Mulkey brothers. I got to say, in the NWA and WCW, they looked like, from the terrible footage you showed me, at a distance, they looked like two shitty Ric Flairs. And then you showed me footage from them in the WWF versus Rhythm and Blues, and they looked just like two shitty generic guys.
Yes.
So just, wow. So what made you a fan of their work?
What? I don't know that I was a fan of their work.
Oh, okay. All right.
Their look.
So you wanted to start out hot with them based on their shitty look.
Well, they're like iconic, dude. I'm very surprised that you have no recollection of them.
Not even.
I thought I was coming in hot. I thought you were going to pop, and this was going to be great.
No.
The Mulkeys were fantastic. And then I was friends with one of them on Facebook for a while, and I think somebody got sick. One of the Mulkeys got sick, and I'm not sure what happened after that. But, yeah, the Mulkey brothers, man. They'd be my first-round draft pick, if you will.
Well, when I think of a jobber tag team, and obviously they did a lot of jobs individually from my era growing up, I think about Dwayne Gill and Barry Hardy.
Yep, here they are on my list. I'm crossing them off now.
And they did a lot of jobs together, obviously individually. Dwayne Gill goes on to be Gilbert. And also at one point, obviously it didn't get off the ground, probably for copyright reasons. They teamed as, I forget their name, but they were definitely ripoffs of the Ninja Turtles at one point in the WWF.
They were like the sewer-dwelling turtle club or something.
I like that name. I'm sure that wasn't the name at all, but I like that a lot. But so I don't know if I've ever told this on the show, though, but I used to do shows in Buffalo for ESW with Barry Hardy. And I got to say, it's interesting because I think he dresses more ridiculous when he's not in wrestling outfits. And also, it's important to point out that he was such a WWF loyalist, and a lifelong enhancement talent for them. You know, he's got the WWF block logo tattooed on his arm. Really big.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So there's no chance that he's ever going to get work anywhere else, including the WWE, which, cannot use that logo on television. But Barry's a nice guy, and the first time I met him...
Sorry, pardon interruption.
Okay.
Toxic Turtles.
That's the name. Okay, yeah.
But they would have been over way more had they been the sewer-dwelling turtle
Club.
team or whatever.
Turtle Club. That's what
Turtle Club. Yeah, I like it.
It just reminded me of Master of Disguise. Did you ever see that movie?
No.
He was like, are you turtle enough to be in the Turtle Club? That shitty movie. Really terrible. I love Dana Carvey, but like even that movie's almost unwatchable. But yeah.
They weren't even trying to not look like the. Why do they gotta have the little masks and everything exactly like the turtles?
We're looking at the outfits right now, and they're definitely straight up Ninja Turtle ripoff outfits.
It's like that TC dude being Doink and Batman.
Oh, yeah.
Battman.
Yeah, and Doinke.
Yeah, wait, yeah.
Not fooling anybody with that.
Right.
But so first time I did a show with Barry Hardy. We're having a locker room meeting, and the promoter goes, okay, well, now Barry's going to do his yearly tradition of awarding everybody with their PWI 500 awards. And I'm going, what the hell does that mean? So Barry gives like a little speech, and then for every person in that locker room that appeared in the PWI 500, he had taken the cover of that year's edition, copied it in color, put it in a frame, and then cut out everyone's bio and glued it in the corner of the frame so that they had a framed copy of their PWI 500 bio. So I want to say, RJ City was in it that year, and I think Colin Delaney might have been in the locker room, and just a few other Buffalo guys. And a lot of those Buffalo guys make the 500, not only because they're good wrestlers, but there's a little bit of a bias because a lot of the guys that write for Pro Wrestling Illustrated live in that upstate New York area. So historically, upstate has always got coverage in Empire State Wrestling, and so yada, yada, yada. I was on that list. So Barry Hardy presented me with a framed cover of PWI 500, and my bio was inserted, and I took a picture with Barry, and I'll have to post it on the social media. I'm pointing at him, and I'm holding up my photocopied award from him, and it meant a lot to him. It was a nice gesture.
Yeah.
Kind of absurd, but nice gesture nonetheless.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked him as Gilbert. That was funny for a while. I think it's funny every once in a while when he comes back.
Yeah.
So
I loved when Gilbert and Goldberg had their very first confrontation. I know they had one recently leading up to the Drew McIntyre thing, I think, but the one that I really enjoyed was the first one where The Rock brought in Gilbert, and Gilbert and Goldberg had that confrontation in 2003. I thought that was very entertaining. And also, I think maybe the standout Gilbert/Dwayne Gill moment is, of course, we've talked about on the show before, the Survivor Series Deadly Games tournament, maybe the best written show that Vince Russo ever did.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
In the first round match to set up Mankind being the corporate pick.
Yes.
Vince does this absurd announcement of this legendary wrestler who for a while went down south to WCW, which was weird to hear Vince say on television at the time.
Yeah.
And then it gets announced as Dwayne Gill, and he comes out with the sparklers for the first time, and he's shocked by the pyro, and it's ridiculous, but that's a good moment.
Yeah.
Give me another jobber.
Well, we were talking about Dwayne Gill, and his partner was Barry Hardy. I think I have several names on that I can think of that were enhancement talents that were named Barry.
Okay.
Barry O.
Yes.
Barry Horowitz.
Uh-huh.
Let me see here. Barry Hardy. And Barry Iron.
There's a Barry Iron, or are you just
Oh,
saying
I'm
that?
sorry, Greg Iron.
Okay.
That's,
I get what you're doing. You're burying me.
burying you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, well, Barry O, obviously, what is he?
He was famous for something.
Well, he's related to the Ortons.
Not in real life, right?
Yeah.
He is?
He's Randy Orton's uncle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's weird that they never brought him back for any angles with Randy. I wonder why that is. It's
Because
almost
Randy
like
was a legend killer.
So you think he would have to kill the legend of Barry O?
I don't think Barry O had a legend.
Oh.
Wait. Ugh. What happened to him?
Well, I think he sued the company for being sexually touched or something.
Really? That's what happened to him?
Yeah, are you being serious right
Yeah,
now?
yeah. I couldn't remember. I thought there was a weird thing. And
Yeah, he was part of that whole sex scandal
with the
in
Pat
1992.
Patterson and the
Yeah.
the ring announcer.
But of course, he didn't bring up any allegations from around that time period. He went back to the 70s or something before he was in the WWF. So I mean, it was all kind of weird. I mean, I'm not doubting the validity of it per se, but it seems like he just kind of jumped on board. There was another. This was on most prominently on. He appeared on Donahue, and I think he talked to Geraldo. But on Donahue, they also interviewed another jobber who just looked like garbage. But it just seemed like one of these things where these guys, they didn't get jobs, so they were just trying to grasp at straws for the opportunity to maybe be recognized.
I thought it was sweet when they'd say Barry, oh, and then he'd put his hands and arms together to form an O.
You thought that was sweet.
Yeah.
You saw that and you're like, man, I like this guy.
And then I liked when Ricky Ortiz brought it back when he was the big O
Okay, well, he
in
had
ECW.
he had those rally towels.
Yeah.
That was his big claim to fame. For a little bit there.
Yeah, well.
Wow. What about Barry Horowitz? Barry.
Very horrible wits.
Well, he ended up being the enhancement guy for a long time. They sort of tried to redo the 1, 2, 3 kid thing, which I think is important to talk about here in a second. But in '95, he finally gets his opportunity, and he beats Skip in a match.
Yeah.
And they end up having their big confrontation in a rematch at SummerSlam 1995.
Right. How did he beat him? Was it Oklahoma Roll?
I believe
Am I right?
so.
Yeah.
Because didn't he use that for his finish?
I don't know if that was his finish, but
I think it
remember when he was on
was.
Cameo?
We did play a Barry Horowitz cameo, yeah.
Yeah.
It was good stuff.
I liked Barry Horowitz. He was another one of those guys that he would be on WCW Saturday night, and then you turn on Wrestling Challenge Sunday morning, and he could be on that.
Well, do you remember in '99 where they actually tried to push him in WCW?
Yeah.
It was on the Saturday night shows, but he actually had sort of a character. He was in the Jimmy Hart family or whatever he was calling the first family or whatever at that point. And he was wearing his jackets with the freaking pat on the back thing, just
the
like when he
little
jobbed
handprint.
in the early '90s. But I remember he was getting a push. It was man, this is going to bother me now because I'm going to try to think of it without looking it up. But I feel like Jimmy had the worst stable of all time at that point. It was Barry Horowitz.
Was it Jimmy Hart or was it Teddy Long?
No, in '99 it was Jimmy Hart.
Oh, okay.
Teddy Long's in
Yeah, because I
WWF
remember
at that
Teddy
point.
Long had a real terrible stable.
That was in '94, wasn't it? He had a terrible stable of guys for a
He
second.
brought in Ice Train.
Yeah.
He signed Ice Train, and
Yeah.
then, yeah.
This is '94.
It was like, yo, man, you managed Doom.
Yeah, right.
And now you have Sergeant Craig Pittman.
Well, I feel like in '99 Jimmy Hart had Barry Horowitz and Jerry Flynn. It was really,
That's it.
it was really bad. But another jobber that I think is important to talk about while we're on this subject, I guess, to segue, the reason why we brought up Barry Horowitz and how popular he became is the one that really gained the first notoriety as becoming a somebody to me was Sean Waltman, the 1, 2, 3 kid.
Yeah, I never counted him as a job guy. I'll tell you why, but I want to go back to Barry Horowitz for a second because he had a huge push over in the Global Wrestling Federation in their light heavyweight division.
Okay.
And I believe he was undefeated, which was so crazy to me because all I ever did was see him get beat on WWF and WCW television.
Right.
So, so now that that's over with, 1, 2, 3 kid. because that was just a gimmick. That was, he lost 3 weeks in a row as as Cannonball Kid.
Well, every week they would
Suicide Kid.
Yeah, they kept changing his name, like Kamikaze Kid,
or something. Kamikaze Kid. Yeah, and then
Lightning Kid.
Once he was just a kid, then he beat Razor, and then they called him the 1, 2, 3 Kid. So I think it was like 3 losses in a row, maybe 4. 1 week Bam Bam Bigelow, but that was just an angle, and then he was good. I wouldn't consider him enhancement talent. They brought him in with an angle in mind for him.
Yeah, but like even if you go back and watch those shows, which I did not too long ago, I remember. I obviously I know what's going to happen now, but I remember watching those and what I felt as a kid, and I just never. I didn't expect him to win, but I think that's what makes it so special is because he wasn't exactly the stereotypical wrestler of the 90s.
You hadn't watched him in Global Wrestling, had you?
I didn't even know Global Wrestling was a thing.
Okay, so I did, and he was my favorite wrestler on the show. And he was entangled in this feud with
Wasn't it
Jerry Lynn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that
and
now.
So I saw those great matches, and I knew that this guy was going to be something special.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, once he got brought up to WWF on Monday Night Raw week after week, I said, oh, this is weird. They're just beating him every week, and they're acting like he's nobody. But I had a feeling he was going to be something.
Something for Emily?
I bet he would have liked Emily.
Okay, well, he ended up being something for sure, and 1, 2, 3 Kid quickly became one of my favorite guys. And to this day, one of the best matches ever on Monday Night Raw was 1, 2, 3 Kid versus Bret Hart. Like, that match is sweet.
Oh, yeah,
Go back and watch that match. It's crazy good.
That was a fantastic match. But a lot of kids' matches. Him and DiBiase, because the angle was beautiful. It was, him and Ramon at first. And that shocker was awesome. Then you had DiBiase come out and belittle Razor Ramon for losing to the kid. And Bobby Heenan said, well, you embarrassed all of us by losing to that snot-nosed punk kid.
Yeah.
And DiBiase said, I'm going to show you how we get it done. And that was one of my favorite angles.
Yeah.
I talked about that with you and Jerry a couple of weeks ago, podcast superstar Jerry, that I believe I was the one that came up with the finish for you guys' match, because that's one of my favorite finishes ever, is that roll-up.
You might have. I know we had talked about the finger poke, but I think that doing that pin afterwards was your idea.
Yeah, you guys tried to play me on that one, though. But that's okay.
I was letting Jerry talk, man. All right, I was just letting him talk, brother. But hey, listen, you bring up the kid thing with DiBiase.
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect segue to someone that was really started out as a jobber as well, but then really became a very, relevant character on the show. PJ Walker ends up doing a match with IRS, and for a while he was just resident jobber guy. I think at some point, I forget who was backstage, kept pitching a Seinfeld gimmick for him.
Oh, yeah, because they said he looked like Jerry Seinfeld.
He looked like Jerry Seinfeld, but at some point, he does a match with IRS. It's either on Superstars or Raw, and I think it's on Raw. And Razor Ramon comes out and does a distraction again, and PJ Walker beats IRS. And then pretty soon after that, he becomes Aldo Montoya, Man of War. So he was still just a jobber with a gimmick at that point. But I really liked Aldo Montoya.
Yeah,
I was a big fan.
I was not a fan.
But see, you were older. But see, when he came out the 95
I didn't like
Rumble,
the mask. It was like a shitty mask.
Dude, when he came out the 95 Rumble, I'll never forget. I was like, oh my God, it's Man of War. Aldo Montoya. I was so pumped.
And somebody being excited.
I got excited. And I think because he had a mask too, and I was a kid. Yeah. And there wasn't a lot of masked wrestlers on WWE. So I was like, oh man, here comes this dude. I like him.
He's from another country.
Yeah.
He's from a whole nother continent.
Well, we could talk about the Brooklyn Brawler.
Yes.
Also, Abe Knuckleball Schwartz, one of the more underrated jobbers.
Yeah, but for me, his enhancement talent started when he was just Steve Lombardi. He didn't have that Brooklyn Brawler gimmick.
Correct.
And then when he came out and attacked, which was one of the more vicious and better attacks on the set of Primetime, when he attacked Terry Taylor.
You just recently showed that to me.
Yeah,
I'd never seen it before. And it was like, actually, it was crazy to see on that set at the time.
Yep.
Just next to a random set of lockers.
Yeah, and then Gorilla got bumped.
Yeah, that was crazy to me.
Yeah, because he never took a bump.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that. What about Jim Powers?
I didn't have Jim Powers on my list only because he was part of the Young Stallions, and they got a big push for a while.
Right, but
because you could say Jim Powers because he lost a hell of a lot, along with Paul Roma.
But also, if you didn't know that time period of Jim Powers and you were watching WCW in like 96, 97, 98, you would just consider him a jobber because he was just doing jobs on there in the 90s.
Yeah. What about Tom Rocky Stone?
I don't know Tom Rocky Stone.
Of course you would.
What do you know about him?
He was a jobber we saw like every week on Wrestling Challenge or Wrestling Superstars. Tom Rocky Stone. And then he just wore like a red jacket that was unzipped.
Okay.
Ricky Atari.
I don't know Ricky Atari.
Rip Rogers. Do you know him?
I know Rip Rogers. I've worked
Didn't
with
he
him
train
in OVW.
our friend Heidi Lovelace?
She started
Had a hand in it?
She had a hand in it, well, mostly by Billy Rock, but then she spent some time in OVW.
Right.
But also, Rip Rogers trained Zach Gowen. He helped train a lot of the guys that came out of that famous 2001, 2002 OVW class, the likes of Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Batista.
I always heard great things
Rico.
about Rip Rogers. And he was one of the guys, if you tuned into WCW Saturday night and he was on, he was going to get introduced and show you like a hand of cards. Like he was playing poker or something.
Yeah.
Because he was the gambler.
Wait, he wasn't the gambler. That's another guy. What?
So young.
There was a jobber named the Gambler, though. I just thought you were
Rip Rogers.
That's a different.
Can we not look this up right
We can
now?
look it up.
Do you want to fight?
I believe he was the hustler, Rip Rogers.
Ah, you're right. You're always right.
But also, I will say this about Rip. While he's one of those guys like Cornette, where he does have some good insight when he's not being a, what's the word I'm looking for? Complete asshole. Like sometimes Rip will just go on these tangents that he doesn't go about them in the right way. And like, for example, I remember when I did OVW with Rip, very kind to me, but he went on this rambling to the whole class of guys where he talked about how Mick Foley was a dumb fuck. Do you know why?
No, why?
He said because when he got thrown off that cell and he should have did the right thing and got carted to the back. And he's like, brother, if that would have been me, I would have got carted to the back, took 8 months off, came back, and I would have been a big baby face on TV when I came back. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, the reason why the Hell in a Cell thing got over was because Foley got up, went back on top. Like, the absurdity of the whole situation is what made that iconic. I mean, listen, if he would have just got thrown off the cell and then went to the back, I think we would still be talking about it today. But I think the idea that he got back up, went back up to the top, and continued to get murdered, and then finished a whole 15-minute match or whatever it was, I think that's what helps it stand the test of time. So when he went on that rambling, I understood where he was coming from, and I know that's the way things were done in the 80s or the 70s, but I think Mick Foley did just fine getting off that stretcher and continuing the match. I think it didn't hurt him at all.
Yeah, there's an argument there.
Moving on, any more jobbers you'd like to talk about?
Brad and Bart Batten.
Don't know.
Okay. They were the ones that Rod had been booking. Hey, bro.
Hey, bro. Oh, I do know them. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't they do ECW in 93 as well?
That I don't know. But, when I wanted to reshape indie wrestling in my hometown, I talked to Rod and I said, What are we booking the Battens for? What would you book the Battens for? And he was like, bro, they were on NWA TV. Yeah, 10 years ago. And they were like the Mulkeys. They lost every match. I was like, well, bro, in USWA, they had a run. Like, nobody here.
That's what I remember them from, USWA in like 92, 93. Yep. Okay. We talked about a lot of good jobbers today. Do you have a jobber that you love that we didn't talk about? Well,
really?
You can. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the audience, you fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Tweet it on over to us or, any form of social media. At Iron On Wrestling. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. What jobbers did you like?
Or
let us know.
What was your favorite one we talked about?
Yeah.
Did you like Pez Watley? Greg didn't remember him. You know what I always was worried about?
What?
If Pez Whatley wrestled Rick Steiner, and Rick Steiner gave him a clothesline, would Pez's head go far back and a piece of candy would come out?
Okay, that's just ridiculous. Make sure you follow us on social media. Check us out over on YouTube at Iron on Wrestling. Give us a subscription over there. Give us a subscription. That doesn't even make sense. Whatever. Subscribe to
us.
YouTube. Yeah. Check us out on iTunes. Subscribe to us on
had
iTunes.
Way too much Dr. Pepper Zero today.
I do like the Dr. Pepper Zero. I'm not a Dr. Pepper fan, but I do like the Dr. Pepper Zero. Make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes or wherever you download your podcast. Rank us 5 stars to create visibility for the podcast. And check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/IronOnWrestling, where for just $3, as low as $3, you can start getting audio and video bonus content. In certain tiers, you can Zoom chat with us each and every month, which we have one of those coming up in the next couple of weeks. You can pick a podcast subject. You can podcast with us in studio. You can get stuff in the mail. There's lots of great tiers. Check it out, patreon.com/IronOnWrestling. For those of you on Patreon, we're going to have an extended version of the interview with Richie Rouge, but also, before we go to the interview with Richie, we have a short interview with the man that uploaded all of the IPW content up to YouTube. The reason why this IPW craze really started, Honeydew Wilkins, and we also have an extended interview with him on the Patreon version of this episode. So let's go to the interview with Honeydew, and after that, we're going to go to some words from our sponsors, and when we come back from the sponsors, it's that time.
What time?
It'll be the time for the interview with the one and only Richie Rouge. Yes. Oh. Stick around because I've got a special message that I'm going to read from Jumping Jeff Farmer. Honeydew Wilkins. Honeydew, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Hi, Greg. How you doing?
I'm okay. And you know, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and as I said to you before it started, I don't know how long this is going to go. I don't know where this is going to take us, but I am just enthralled by IPW, and you're the guy that put this on the internet. So like, first and foremost, we messaged back and forth a little bit. You ended up getting this footage through an old wrestling trainer of yours because you were training to be a professional wrestler. Is that how this all began?
Yeah, that's back in 2002. I started training at a local wrestling school, and it was one of the trainers at that school who had the tape.
Okay, so walk me through the process. What area is this in? This would be in Arkansas, right?
This is Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma City. Why am I thinking Arkansas? Okay, so Oklahoma City. How hard is it to find a wrestling school in Oklahoma? Is it like a prevalent thing? Because I don't know much about Oklahoma wrestling other than one of my good friends, Cody Lane, I believe wrestled in that area quite often.
This was in 2002, so they had their own group called New Mid-South Wrestling. And Tom Jones was involved with that. And so there's some of the guys from that promotion started their own school. So it would have been, I guess it just would have been those two schools in the area at that time would have been operating.
Gotcha. So you're training at this school. At what point, how long into training, and why do you get introduced to international pro wrestling? Is this a thing that you knew existed before you find out about it at school?
No, this is the first time I heard about it was from them at the school. And so I'm not sure what the timetable was for how long I was there, but after getting to know the trainers, we kind of have a common interest in the bad wrestling that we love. So of course they brought up a IPW and said, one day we're going to bring this tape in so you can see it. And so it was like one day after class, they brought the tape in and we just watched it. I lost my mind. It was incredible.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was absolutely incredible. So what was the first thing you saw from the IPW?
I'm trying to remember. I think the first thing they went to was Jeff Farmer. They were saying, wait, you turned the tables on me. They were referencing that before they got to it. And so I believe it was Jeff Farmer was the first thing I saw of it.
So when you're told about IPW, what is the backstory that you're given about the promotion?
There really was no backstory. It's just this was something that one of them had taped. I think it was Tulsa Cable Access aired the show with this other group called World Wrestling Empire. I got Brad Michaels dubbed me a copy of it around 2003. So yeah, I must have had it for, I guess, 5 years because I first uploaded the Jeff Farmer clip in 2008. So I had it for like 5 years. And when YouTube was starting to get more popular. It's like, okay, now I got to share this.
Yeah.
Way I can share it.
So obviously, if you uploaded the Jeff Farmer clip first,
Yes.
so you knew that was going to be, if there was going to be ever a hit out of all this IPW stuff, it was going to be the Jeff Farmer one.
Oh yeah, and I had to give it the clickbait title of best wrestling promo ever, because that's the only way I knew how to get more eyes on it, was giving it the clickbait title.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've watched the Jeff Farmer promo, and then as you uploaded more content from it, just for me, I just wanted to know more and more about this promotion. So we all know how infamous the Jeff Farmer promo is, but what do you think when you look at all the stuff you've uploaded? Because you've uploaded all of the promos individually that you have access to, but you've also uploaded 4 as complete episodes as you have, correct?
Yeah, as they aired it as a whole episode, yeah.
Do you know what time period in which they aired? Because I know the copyright at the end says 1994.
Right. I think it might have been, my theory is it was kind of in the can for a while, and they just, this station probably aired it in the mid-90s, maybe 94, 95.
Okay.
So I'm thinking the stuff they was probably at least a few years old first.
Before we started recording, something I've always wondered about was Buddy Lee. And as we record this, I've yet to talk to Richie Rouge. So I don't know what type of insight and knowledge he's going to drop on me, but from the messages that I've exchanged with him, he's got a very incredible story. But Buddy Lee, what's the deal on Buddy Lee? What can you tell me about him?
Yeah, we were talking about this before. From the It's a Small World department, I had a coworker who used to live in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and he worked at a local television station. And at that station also worked, Buddy Lee was an employee there. And my coworker told me that at that TV station, Buddy Lee worked as the host of the local kids afternoon block. So I guess of the show where they show cartoons in the afternoon and someone would host it and throw to the cartoons, that was Buddy Lee. And his name was Cowboy Buddy Lee.
Wow. So have you ever done any further research on Cowboy Buddy Lee? Because now I feel like this is the first thing I have to Google when we're done here.
All I could do was Google. There's nothing about it. I can't. And I asked my coworkers, like, if you know anyone at that station, you got to find out if there's any tapes or anything. But
yeah,
it never went beyond that.
I just need to know everything that I can figure out about IPW. But Honeydew, when you think about international pro wrestling and its legacy, which I feel like, again, you're the reason why there is even a legacy, because I don't know if this footage would be online otherwise, and no one would know about this. So when you think at the end of the day, you think about Jeff Farmer, Richie Rouge, and Bill Ash and all these guys, what do you think the lasting legacy of IPW will be?
I just think the joy and happiness it brings, I think, is because these guys were trying. There's no pretense to it. This wasn't ironic bad wrestling. This was 100% sincere, and they were trying, and that's what made it great.
Yeah,
that's what I think about it.
Hell yeah, man. I can't wait to find out more about this. I can't wait to talk to Richie about all of this. On behalf of the wrestling world, Honeydew, I cannot thank you enough for putting this on the internet, because I love wrestling and I love unintentional hilarity. And you have brought both those things to me in the wrestling world. And for that, sir, I thank you.
Greg, thank you. And it brings me joy to know that IPW has brought so much joy and happiness to so many people. So that makes me feel good.
And when you were training to be a wrestler, your name wasn't going to be Honeydew Wilkins, was it?
No, my name was something less silly, ridiculous. It was Sloppy Joe.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you do any shows?
I did shows for a few months. It's barely a cup of coffee.
Damn, man.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to dig deeper into the career of Sloppy Joe at some point.
That would be a very short show.
If someone wanted to find you on social media, or if they wanted to subscribe to you on YouTube, how could they do so?
Yeah, YouTube, just Honeydew Wilkins, or just type in IPW Jeff Farmer. I'm there on YouTube.
Honeydew, can't thank you enough, man. And I hope that we get together and talk again real soon.
Sure, appreciate it. Thank you, Greg.
If you're in the pro wrestling or entertainment industry, you probably realize how important it is to have merchandise. Not only does it help you when it comes to bringing in additional revenue for yourself, but the look and feel of merch is a representation of the brand you're building. So you definitely don't want it to suck. Now you're probably asking yourself, well, where can I find a reliable and reputable artist that'll make me a solid t-shirt or pin design that'll make me look and feel like a superstar? Well, I've got the answer for you. Of the Dead Designs. Of the Dead Designs is a one-man merch company ran by artist Juan Ortiz. Now, his name may not be familiar to you, but his artwork should be, because you've likely seen his designs on TV and Hot Topic, and he's created some of the highest-selling shirt designs in pro wrestling tees history. Of the Dead Designs has created artwork for the biggest names in WWE, AEW, ROH, Impact, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and beyond. I'm talking guys like Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, CM Punk, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, Road Warrior, Animal, the Lucha Brothers, Jungle Boy, even yours truly. Now you're probably saying, whoa, I'm not in the league of the Young Bucks or Hulk Hogan, brother. There's no way I can afford artwork from Of the Dead Designs. Well, I'm here to tell you you're wrong, because Of the Dead Designs is affordable. Juan isn't just looking to create art for the superstars of today. He wants to make it for the superstars of tomorrow as well. And look, Of the Dead Designs doesn't just do artwork for wrestlers. He'll create merch for your band, your podcast, your dance troupe, your kids' pee-wee football team, your daughter's school bake sale. Heck, got a girl that you're afraid to talk to, but you stalk on Instagram and like all of her photos at around 2 or 3 a.m., and you've been hoping that she get the hint like, hey, I really like you, but she has yet to slide in your DMs, and now you think, well, I got to take it to the next level, so you get Of the Dead Designs to use a photo of her ex-boyfriend as a reference to create artwork, but you replace the ex's face with your face, and then present this custom artwork to the chick with hopes that she'll kiss you directly on the lips. Of the Dead Designs will do that for you. With over 14 years of experience and a portfolio of clients that speaks for itself, Of the Dead Designs will make your artwork at a reasonable price. And hey, if you mention this ad, you'll save $10 on your first design. Of the Dead Designs still has spots open for 2020, so you gotta act fast. If you're interested in a design, contact Of the Dead Designs right now on Instagram at ofthedead209, on Facebook at facebook.com/ofthedeaddesigns, or at his website, ofthedead.weebly.com. Of the Dead Designs, bringing artwork to life. We will return to the Iron on Wrestling podcast in just a moment, but I wanted to take a couple minutes of this time to let you guys know that if you didn't realize it already, Iron on Wrestling is a DIY project. That's right, I'm recording all this myself. I'm editing it in-house all by myself. I'm coming up with the segments and the content, and I'm making sure that each and every Wednesday, by investing countless hours of my personal time, you guys have a new, unique, and entertaining episode blasting into your ear holes. So I hope you don't mind that for a few minutes each episode, you have to deal with a little bit of advertising. Because, quite frankly, I gotta pay those bills somehow. But you know, I don't just pick anyone to be an advertiser on the podcast. When I choose an advertiser for the show, I want to make sure that it's someone that can bring you, the listener, value. I often talk about Of the Dead Designs and my good buddy Juan Ortiz, who can create you a unique logo or t-shirt design for your personal brand. But once that t-shirt design is made, who's going to print it for you? Well, that's where Jesse Massey and SBS Printing comes in. Jesse is a good friend of mine, and much like me in this podcast, he's DIY. For over 10 years, Jesse has been printing t-shirts and hoodies in the comfort of his own home, and he's been the official t-shirt printer for guys like myself, Atticus Koger, Eddie Only, Ricky Shane Page, basically all the 440 guys. My favorite thing about Jesse Massey is the quick turnaround time. When I go to Jesse and I need a shirt design printed right away, I know that he'll have it ready for me within 3 to 5 days, sometimes even quicker. And on top of that, he's affordable. Jesse and SBS can print one color shirt designs for as low as $5. $5. Where are you going to find another deal like that? Now you're probably thinking at a price like that, there's no way these could be quality, long-lasting prints. Wrong! They're super high quality and they're going to last you a lifetime. Jesse and SBS can print you t-shirts, zip-up hoodies, sweaters, and so much more. I encourage you to hit up Jesse right now. Shoot him an email at antisepticmaxrock@gmail.com. That's ANTISEPTIC maxrock@gmail.com. With Jesse Massey and SBS, you're going to get the best. That's no BS.
Ladies and gentlemen, Richie Rouge.
Well, I'll tell you something, Bulldozer. I am impressed. I mean, I can't come out here and I can't squash an apple with my bare hands. It does show that you do have a lot of power, and you are a man to be respected. But, you know, I tell you, I can't come out here and I can't crush an apple, but there's one thing I can do, and that's step into the ring and fight as hard as I know how to do and do the best job that I know how to do. And, Bulldozer, I don't care what you do out here, or I don't care how big or bad you are. Nobody is going to come out here and talk about my family. I'll stand face to face to you one-on-one no matter what I have to do.
Now let's go to the ring.
Well, today is a very special episode. I have, after much research and digging, I have the distinct honor and the privilege to sit and chat with a legend, the one and only IPW performer, Richie Rouge. Richie, thank you for taking the time to chat with me this afternoon.
Well, it's an honor. It's an absolute honor to be here, Greg. I certainly appreciate it. I had to say I still can't squash an apple with my bare hand.
That's
The
probably
other day and still couldn't do it.
that's probably your most famous or infamous promo. But we're definitely going to talk about that stuff. We're going to talk about
What you do
IPW.
when you're younger, I tell you.
Yeah. Well, listen, look, I look back at some of my original promos when I started because in IPW, I mean, obviously we're jumping ahead for a second here, but like you were around 20 years old at that time, right?
1920, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I look back at a lot of my promos when I was 19 and 20 and I cringe. It's hard to watch because you're still learning so much when you're that young in professional wrestling.
Well, the good one are the heel ones, and the heel ones aren't on there. So, I was a heel trying to be a baby face, and I had no idea. I just tried to copy Tommy Rich. I figured if I'm going to copy somebody, I might as well try to copy Tommy Rich. He was always a good baby face and a good guy too. Super nice guy.
It's interesting because we've been talking for a couple of weeks now that you bring up that you were mostly a heel most places, but obviously with the popularity of IPW, people know you as a babyface. But when you told me that you're a heel, it kind of made sense because the way you deliver those promos in IPW, it's not necessarily your stereotypical babyface of the time. There's a little bit of a swagger and a cockiness to the delivery.
Yeah, there's one that's on there that he let me stray a little bit in there, and he says don't go all the way, but give him a hint of you being a heel, and that's when I throw out the 5'9", 225 pounds. A lot of people don't think I'm big enough for the job, but just grab a hold of me and watch me grow.
Yeah.
I got that line from Jake the Snake when I was in 5th grade. I was watching Georgia Championship Wrestling, and the dirty connotation, I was a kid, so that never entered my head.
Right.
I just heard you say that, and I thought it was the neatest thing I ever heard. And I said, if I ever become a wrestler, that's going to be the first thing that I say. I remembered it all those years. And so that's Jake the Snake is the one that came up with that.
That's awesome. It's funny because every time I've heard that promo, my brain immediately went to Jake, not based off of probably that promo you're talking about, but I know Jake said it years later in the WWF when I was watching as a kid in like 91 or 92. Yeah. So he obviously reused that line at some point, but yeah, I mean, Jake Roberts, it's funny that you mentioned how he kind of inspired you coming up in wrestling, because I remember as a kid, and obviously things change when you get in wrestling, you start to learn things. And obviously in my era, the athleticism has greatly increased. And so I remember the big thing about Jake for me was obviously the DDT. And I remember thinking, man, if I was ever a pro wrestler, the DDT would be my finishing move. And obviously the DDT it was devastating back then, but now it's so many guys use it as a transitional move, and it's just not, it's not the same as it used to be.
Well, none of those finishes are, none of them are. I mean, I did the figure 4 but you don't even hardly see that today. If you watch the NWA, I keep up a little bit with the NWA, Billy Corrigan.
Yeah.
But I don't really watch anything else, you know, but all of the finishes just about have went out the window. You know, they don't hardly ever use them anymore.
Yeah.
And it's a real game, you know.
It is. It is. I want to really talk to you about modern wrestling, how much you've kept up with, and we'll get to that at some point. But I guess like, I mean, man, it's kind of surreal talking with you because of your infamy on YouTube. And I really want to dig deeper into your life and your career. And so, you know, you grew up in Arkansas. Is that correct?
I did. And we lived in California, 9th and 10th grade. I lived in California, and my dad had contacted a guy out there named Woody Farmer, who was a wrestler, a big time wrestler out there in California. And I met him and kind of got hooked up with him, and he was going to train me after high school, but we moved back to Arkansas my senior year. And he told me about this guy named Bill Ash, who his dad actually made all the boots for every wrestler in the world. I mean, all the boots came from Paris, Arkansas, from Bill Ash and his dad. And so we went and met Bill, and I started training with him when I was a senior in high school.
Okay. Wow. So how old were you at that point? 17?
I was 17 years old, and my dad paid for all my training at one time. And Bill kept telling him, don't pay it, don't give it, because he thought I was going to quit. Because back then it wasn't easy to break in.
Sure.
You know, back then they tried to run you off. And so my dad insisted, and so my dad paid for the whole thing. And I trained the first time. He put me in a front face lock. Bam, I went down and had to put a brace on my neck. And then this is the second time I trained. He separated my shoulder, and so I had a sling on my arm. So I came back with a brace on my neck and a sling on my arm. He says, "What are you doing here?" I says, "Well, I still have one arm I can use." And he just shook his head, and he says, "Okay, man." He says, you win. And then he started training me.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, how much was training back in that time period?
1,500.
Okay. Wow. So
and Woody was going to charge me too.
Okay.
So, and you know, of course, you knew he never said that wrestling was a work.
Right.
Never. He trained us just like it was the real deal. And he never mentioned it to me. He never smartened me up until about a week before I had my first match.
Wow. That's so how long were you training? How long were you training at that point?
He trained me for 5 months.
Okay. So like, yeah. So I always, I don't know about you, but I remember thinking when I trained for like 3 months before I was thrown in the ring. And I always think, like, at the time I was just excited to get in the ring, but in retrospect, I really wish that I would have had like a year or something under my belt before anyone saw me in the ring. Like, do you have that similar feeling, or do you feel like you were sort of ready enough to start wrestling at that point?
No, I was a lot better than I thought I was. I was a lot better than I thought I was. Bill Ash, as a trainer, I don't know if you've looked him up online, but you know, he wrestled for Mid-South. He's in the old Mid-South and Southwest Championship Wrestling. There's a match with him and Ricky Morton. And he was an old timer, and he was a really methodical about everything. So everything had to be 100% perfect. You know, it was like, put your thumb out, not in, and, you know, move your feet this way. Everything had to be absolutely perfect with him. So, and I hated him at the time. I hated his guts. I thought he was a nut job, and he is. But, but, you know, I appreciate him training me like that, because I started out, I was a lot better than I thought I was. And he trained me for a couple of extra months before he put me in the ring, because I'm not a very big guy. You know, I was about 215, 220.
Yeah.
And he wanted to, he said, "You're about my size, and I want to make sure you can handle yourself when you get in there. Somebody tries to hurt you."
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting because in leading up to this interview, and I told you before we started recording, I went down a real rabbit hole of IPW stuff, and I looked up Bill Ash, and I saw that he had a match with Ricky Morton on YouTube. And so I had just had Ricky's son, Kerry, on the podcast. And so I immediately messaged Kerry and I said, hey, ask your dad about Bill Ash and see what he says. And
Oh, God, what'd you say?
he just wrote me back in like 5 seconds, and he was like, I just asked my dad. He said, Bill Ash, hell of a worker. So I was like, wow, like that's kind of I like, because I know of his other stuff for like Mid South and everything, but like I haven't seen much of it. And so to kind of get that endorsement from Ricky Morton, I feel like that's sort of a big deal because Ricky's one of the greatest of all time.
Well, you know, he was in Continental right before he started training me, and he was U.S. Junior Heavyweight Champion there, and he feuded with Scott Armstrong. Some of those matches are online if you kind of dig and find them. But Bill was a hell of a worker, man. He really was. He was, you know, everything had to be just absolutely perfect with him. You know, he was nerve-wracking to wrestle though, because you know you didn't want to mess up. That was one, you know, you didn't want to mess up.
Yeah.
And he kind of squinted his teeth and you could barely hear him in the ring, you know, so you really had to pay attention to what he was doing, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a hell of a worker. He really was.
Now, where exactly did you guys train regularly? And then when you, like, what did training look like for you as far as, was it just you and Bill, or were there other people in the class with you? And like, do you do drills? Like you look back at some of the stuff, like, for example, in that time period, like, in the AWA, how they would train guys, how it was like more of a boot camp style. And then you fast forward to the way I trained, it was a little more relaxed. And obviously you're kind of in on the gimmick that, you know, everything's a work, but much like you were with Bill, I was sort of afraid of my trainer, JT Lightning, because he was very, I would say more so than mean, bipolar. Like he would be nice 1 second and then crazy the next. And so I never knew what to expect with him. So,
That's
okay.
Dude, he when we started out doing falls. We started out doing tuck and rolls, and we did them on concrete. And then we got a mat, and we did them on a mat. And he would just show us different holds. He was trying to run you off, is what he was trying to do.
Yeah.
And he would show you certain holds. He would tie you up, and once he figured out, and a lot of people dropped out because it started out, there was 8 or 9 of us training, and I think only 2 of us ended up after 2 or 3 weeks staying with him. And then we had other guys come on, you know, but we practiced, we always practiced tuck and rolls. He did a lot of switches and reverses. We did a lot of that, front face lock, top wrist lock, reversing it, things of that nature. And we did a lot of amateur moves, you know. And at first there was a whole lot of calisthenics.
Okay.
Just endless calisthenics to just drop you. And after about, and always forearms and chops.
Really?
He would tie us up in the rope and we would take turns, and he had these bony forearms, man, and he just drilled you with them. And he would drill forearms, and then we would bend over and they'd do them on our back.
Huh.
They would do chops. And after about a month, we actually got into a ring and started running ropes and started learning spots and things of that nature. You know?
Wow. No, so when I was getting into wrestling, and again, things have changed now from even when I started, but I remember going into wrestling and being obsessed with wrestling. I read so many autobiographies about when you break into wrestling, even though you end up finding out it's a work, that these guys will beat you up for real. And, in a sense, you have to, quote, pay your dues. And I went into wrestling knowing, okay, at some point, these guys are probably going to beat me up for real, and I'm going to have to take that. And this is like, I'm being a person that I'm not a tough guy, and I've never really gotten in many fights in my life other than a couple as a kid. So you entering wrestling school, you obviously don't know it's predetermined. Do you go into wrestling just knowing, well, I'm just going to get my ass kicked and we'll see where it goes from there?
Well, it's funny. Yeah, kind of. It's funny because my dad, who was my biggest supporter and best friend, and I always took him with me to train in the beginning, you know. And I remember he actually came into my room after a couple of months, and he said, "Son, I'm getting a little worried." I said, "What's the matter?" He says, I'm beginning to think this stuff's really real." He says, "What happens if this is really real and you really get hurt?" I said, "No, Dad, it's not. They're just not saying anything to us yet. Believe me, they'll let us know. I'm telling you, I didn't know that for a fact. That was what I, gathered.
What made you think that it wasn't on the up and up?
We were, I don't know, the way you did the spots and the way you did the, tackle, drop down, leapfrog, hip toss, it's just too much of a, I don't want to say choreographed. I've always hated that word.
Yeah.
I still don't like talking about it being a work, even though I know everybody knows. It just drives me crazy.
Sure.
But I just knew that, I don't know, I just knew that it was, and I had seen that infamous 2020 with Eddie Mansfield.
Okay.
Where and I thought that, but to me, it never was fake. And it's still not fake because, you wrestle. The bumps are very real.
For sure.
Forearms, the chops and everything is very real. And you have to have a certain amount of toughness to be able to survive that,
Absolutely. Absolutely. What year was this that you start training?
1988. Yeah, I graduated in 80. It was 88.
Okay. Yeah. It's interesting though. You talk about you talk about the sort of the bumps and the bruises that come along with it, even though it's predetermined, however you want to word it without calling it fake. Cause I still hate fake because it's definitely far from fake, but I think the best way that I've ever heard wrestling described was by, I think, Gene Siskel or Roger Ebert, one of the two, after watching The Wrestler. And they said that, as far as I can tell, wrestlers get hurt not in unplanned ways, but in ways they plan on getting hurt. And I think that's the best way to describe it. Like we sort of know going into it, like this is going to kind of suck, but this is part of the gig.
It's part of it. Yeah. You just, and you'd be surprised how much punishment the human body can take. That once you get used to it,
For sure. You finish.
You can take a whack from a chair on the front of the head pretty good. You can take a pretty good whack up there if you're used to it.
How many chair shots did you take to the head, Richie?
Jesus. I have no idea. We would wrestle for these little shows just to kind of get practice out of Lake Village, Arkansas, Hamburg, Arkansas, and a lot of these little towns, and we always would headshot each other. It was part of it. I don't know, man. Maybe a dozen. I don't know.
Wow. Well, it's one of those things now where when I grew up watching wrestling, chair shots were just a thing that you saw all the time. And now when you look back at archived footage and that chair shots are banned on TV now, it's one of those things where it's jarring and sort of concerning to see how many chair shots guys were just taking the dome, especially what we know about concussions today, right?
I've had about 7 of them. So I'm on medication and everything because I've had so many concussions. You're pretty safe. It's never good to take a chair shot, but you're pretty safe if you do it in this part of the head. You never want to do it in the back of the head.
Right.
But, you get used to it taking it in the front of the head. But, concussions, that was something that came with it,
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I want to talk about before I talk about your first matches and then your sort of journey into IPW, one thing that we talked about in messages, you actually came up training with Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah. Jeff, well, matter of fact, I told you there was 2 of us that made it through those beginning days, and he was one of them. Jeff Farmer is an absolute nut job. And he got kicked out of the Air Force. Now, I don't know exactly what he did, but he pulled some kind of stunt that got him kicked out of the Air Force, and he was a gymnast. He was an accomplished gymnast.
Wow.
So he was a very good athlete. To wrestle Jeff was always a struggle. And I don't know why, some guys just, they for whatever reason, they just, it's not smooth to them. And he was always a struggle to wrestle. They used to put me against him a lot when I was a heel. And because he was a gymnast, he always took a weird bump. He never took a normal bump. So, it was always a struggle. I was wrestling him in Baton Rouge, and I actually busted his nose. I went for an elbow drop and hit him with my back, and he says, "God damn!" I said, "Oh shit, sorry, Jeff."
Yeah, wow.
But Jeff was something else. We were wrestling in Alma, and me and Jeff, a friend of mine, Chris, and Clint, I believe, was riding with us. And Jeff was driving, and the cops, of course, he was going 80 miles an hour, and the cop came up behind us, and he said, "Man, trade places with me. Please trade places with me." I said, "He's already on his way to the car. We don't have time to." So he had a warrant out of Alma. So, no, he had a warrant out of Fort Smith. We were wrestling in Alma, which is pretty close. So they let him wrestle that night, and the cops surrounded the ring when he went out there. And as soon as he got out and grabbed his stuff from the dressing room, they took him to jail. And my dad had to bail him out. My dad bailed him out that, and he still owes us money for that.
Oh, wait a minute. So what does the conversation with the cops look like, where they're just like, "Okay, here's the deal. You're allowed to go to your wrestling show and wrestle, and then we're just going to surround the ring." I mean, that's insane.
My friend Chris could talk a blue streak. He could just talk a blue, and he went back there and talked to him, and I guess convinced him how important Jeff was to the show. And they just did that. I think they wanted to see a wrestling match anyway, so.
Yeah.
But
wow.
Yeah, it was a weird deal. Jeff was something else. Jeff was definitely something else.
Did you guys have like a strong bond because you guys were the two that survived out of that class, or like what was the friendship like between you and Jeff?
Well, we weren't real tight, but we were, I don't know, it's kind of like surviving a plane crash with somebody. You have a bond there that you can't break, that'll always be there, but we weren't real tight. He was just a wild and crazy guy, and I don't know why, but I've never seen women attract to somebody like they did to Jeff Farmer.
Really?
Unbelievable. It was crazy. And he was married, but that didn't matter to him.
Oh boy.
He attracted women like crazy, and he was just something else. The last I heard, I actually read a newspaper article about him. He started a business, and I believe it was in Cabot or Beebe, Arkansas, fixing car windshields.
Okay.
And last I heard, a friend of mine showed me an article where he got arrested because he took a BB gun and went shooting out people's windows to try to drum up business for himself.
Oh, no.
That was Jeff. Those interviews that Jeff does, that was not a work. That was really Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really Jeff, man.
So ridiculous. Well, let's talk.
How people really like him. They really tend to go for him. You get a lot of comments about Jeff Farmer,
Well, let's get back on the subject of wrestling. So, you're traveling the roads for a couple years, and pretty early in your career, you end up doing some shots for WCW. So what do the shows look like for you leading up to your opportunity with WCW?
Well, I did them because I wanted the experience. And I had befriended this guy named Manny Villalobos, and I've wrestled for him a few times in Texas. He was a Mexican wrestler, very super nice guy. And I met him. And I think it wasn't Joe Blanchard. I don't remember who it was. They would put up the rings. Yeah, sometimes for WCW, put down the rings, but he was in charge of getting a lot of the jobbers for WCW. So I did that. It was really good money, and I did it basically for the experience. I think, now don't quote me on this, I think they paid you $350 a shot, and $3 or $350, and then you got $100 draw the night you wrestled. So you would get $100 draw, and then you would get a paycheck from Ted Turner at the end of the month for, your matches there. But it was first class, man. You went in there, they fed you, they catered the dressing room, and they fed you, and it was just an experience. They did interviews. Back then, it was a committee that was in charge. Ric Flair was the head of the committee, and I think Eddie Gilbert was on it, and Kevin Sullivan was on it. I don't know who all was on it, but yeah, it was quite an experience. I had an experience with Buzz Sawyer.
I wanted to talk about that because that match is available on YouTube. It was from November 26, 1989. And in conversation with you, your match with Buzz Sawyer wasn't exactly a walk in the park.
Well, I get there, and we're in Corpus Christi. I think it's Corpus Christi. And I get there and I eat, and they put the sheet on the dressing room wall of who all's going to work each other. And there's like 15, 20 matches because it's TV. And out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw Buzz Sawyer walk past. And I had always said as a youngster growing up, this is one guy I never wanted. Him and Abdullah the Butcher was another. I never wanted to wrestle. And I thought, it would just be my luck to get there. And I look on that sheet, man, and sure enough, it's Buzz Sawyer. And so the guy comes up to me in the dressing room, and he says, I guess I'm working you. He says, what I'll do with you is I think I'll just beat the shit out of you. I said, well, that's what I'm here for. So, and we got out there, and he just beat the hell out of me. He just beat the hell out of me. He splashed me 3 times from the top rope. They only showed it once. They actually cut some of the match.
Wow.
He splashed me 3. And then the third time he went up there to splash me, I looked at the referee. I said, man, this guy's going to kill me. And he says, he's a little rough, isn't he? I said, a little rough. The first time he went up for a splash, when somebody comes down off the top rope, you raise your torso and you reach out your arms and you catch them when they come down. He didn't like that. That pissed him off. He said, stay down. Stay with your back down. Don't move. And he went back up and did it again and then did it again. He's the only guy I ever wrestled in the ring that tried to hurt me.
Wow.
And I honestly believe he tried to hurt me. And I get back to the dressing room, and Ric Flair looks at me, are you okay, kid? I said, yeah, I guess so. And then he has the gall to come up and thank me for the match afterwards. He says, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Jesus, some nerve, man. He just beat the shit out of you. And then
Nobody liked him. Nobody liked him. Nobody could stand him. He was just a real jerk.
That's awful. How many matches did you do for WCW?
3 or 4 is all. I wrestled Eddie Gilbert in a dark match, and I think it was in Bristol, Tennessee, and it went about 12 minutes, and he gave me 8 minutes of that match. I'll never forget that. He did. He gave me at least 7 or 8 minutes of that match. He was a super good guy.
Wow.
And we worked the Road Warriors in Georgia. Me and Chris did. And I always had heard that they were rough on you, that they were, and they were a little rough, but I can handle a little rough,
Sure.
A little rough's not trying to hurt you.
Right.
So, and they were super nice guys.
That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
I basically had good experience. The reason I didn't keep doing jobs with them is because a lot of the local promoters wouldn't put you over if you were seen doing jobs every week on TV.
That makes sense. So do you think that was sort of the general consensus at the time too? Because there were so many guys that growing up for me that you would see as regular enhancement talent on WWF television in 90, 91, 92, 93, that, you knew them as the guys that were going to lose. And so obviously I wasn't part of the indie scene around that time period, and you were. Do you think that was the same in all areas? That, like, if you're, say, like a Dwayne Gill and you're doing jobs every week on the WWF while you're getting paid good and you're getting that WWF exposure, you're not exactly going to get a push if you're working the local indie show?
Well, yeah, if it's an outlaw show, they don't really care. But if you're trying to do something, like Bill was trying to do with IPW, or, that you were really trying to do something that wasn't just an outlaw show, yeah, they certainly did. They didn't want guys that were seen getting beat up every week on TV. And a lot of those jobbers, though, that worked for WCW, some of them did that full time, and they made a real good living doing that, and they would, because, they had 2 or 3 TV shows back then. So they were always doing TV tapings. And, if a guy worked 3 times a week, that's $1,500, or, not, almost $900, or for 300 or 350. I don't remember exactly how much it was, but
yeah,
a lot of guys made a good living doing that, and they were content, to do that.
Sure. You mentioned Bill Ash and IPW and what he was trying to do. Let's dive into it. When do you hear of the formation of IPW? Where does it all stem from? Just the mind of Bill Ash? He just one day goes, "Hey, I'm going to start this promotion," or what?
No, he actually started training people with that purpose. And he was hooked up with this guy named John Gorman in Little Rock, who was a small business owner, and they had it out and they split. And John Gorman went with Buck Robley, and Bill Ash went off by himself. And some people went with John Gorman, some people went with Bill. I stayed with Bill. And luckily, because John Gorman only put on a couple of shows, and Buck Robley took him for everything he had. But, Bill came up with this, and we actually, I want to say 89, 88 or 89. No, it was 88, because it was one of my first matches in Boonville, Arkansas. He shot a pilot episode. And if you'll notice on the ones now, the very beginning, when IPW comes on, the very first frame is me with platinum blonde hair, hip tossing this guy. And it's all from that one show in Boonville, Arkansas. That's what that very first is that came on there. But he sent me the tape, and I actually went around to 4 of the TV stations in Little Rock trying to get it on the air. And we finally did get it on the air. And he got it. He had one in Tulsa, and he had the one in Little Rock, and one in Missouri, I believe, that he had on the air. So
okay, so this was airing in 88 or 89?
No. It was the pilot episode was shot in 88, 89. By the time we actually started IPW, he just used those he didn't use the first full pilot. He used it's the only time I ever used my real name in a match. It was my very first. But he took different matches out of it and put them, from that pilot, and put them in. But we had already started taping. We did a taping in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then we started taping in Springdale, Arkansas, in this TV studio.
So is that what you see online is from that TV studio?
Yes, it's all from the TV studio.
Okay, so talk to me about that studio then, because, online, the quality of the footage isn't exactly the best. It almost looks like it doesn't look like a studio necessarily. So, what does this studio look like, and how many people are in attendance? Because we're used to it in the COVID area of watching wrestling now, but there's clearly piped in crowd noise, which I always found sort of funny when there's not that many people.
There's 40 people there. They would get in for free because it was TV, and they would wait outside. And a lot of them were people that knew the wrestlers. A lot of them were family members of the wrestlers, and they would let them in. And it was a studio where they did, on the corner, they did a newscast in the very corner. And the rest of it, it was just an open building, almost like a hangar for an airplane almost. And we had to put up these partitions for the dressing rooms on each side. And you know, we would do 4 shows every month.
Wow. Now, how many months did you guys tape TV?
Went on for about a year and a half. About a year and a half.
So there's a lot of footage out there that we've never
there's
seen.
There's a ton of it. And some of the tapings we did in Springdale at the fairgrounds too. They had a little fairgrounds arena that we would tape there. But all the ones you see are from the first few tapes, which it actually, the quality is a lot better from the fairgrounds, you know, than what you see online now. But the first tapings we did, they were the ones with me and Larry Wright, me and Bulldozer.
Well, let's talk about your feud with Bulldozer, because it's something of legend on the internet, along with your promos. You know, at some point you end up beating Bulldozer, which I feel like is probably a big deal. So how does the feud with Bulldozer get set up? What was it like working with him and his manager Gypsy?
Well, you know, she became my manager. I had to travel with her for 3 months when I turned heel.
Oh, okay.
That was what that whole thing was about. She was coming to me and I turned heel. But anyway, Larry Wright, he was also an assassin. Sometimes he would be Flame. Yeah, but we were in Tennessee one time doing a battle royal, and he was there, and he was an masked assassin. And we kind of got to the side of each other, and he said, "I hate these battle royals." I said, "Man, I do too, with a passion. Nobody likes battle royals." And he said, "Let's just beat on each other for 3 minutes and throw each other out of the ring." I said, "Good deal, gotcha." So that's what we did. Apparently something impressed him, because he went to Bill and he said, "I want to put this kid over on TV." Larry, you know, Larry had wrestled in Memphis, and he was he was an old timer basically. And so it was his ideal to have that match and to put me over. And he never, ever, ever let me forget it. Ever. It was constant. When we had when I had that second match, which was the same night, the same taping, against Motley Cruz, and he comes in and beats me with a chain. He told me, he said, "When I beat you with this chain and pile drive you, you stay on the ground and you make them carry you back to the dressing room." Well, I screwed up. As soon as they quit taping, I thought, well, TV's done. I got up and walked back to the dressing room, and he got pissed. He called me back there and he says, we had to go back out there and do another match. And I think it was a 10-minute Broadway. I'm not sure. Or maybe Motley came in and it was disqualification. But he said, "I'm going to beat the hell out of it," basically. He says, "You're going to pay for that. You made me look like a fool, and I put you over, and I did this and this." And I said, "Well," I said, you can beat the hell out of me, but I promise you it's not going to be easy." So we got out there and wrestled again, and he was just extremely tight. He didn't try to hurt me. He was just real tight. You know, it was a struggle to get through the match. And that whole year with Bulldozer was a love-hate situation with him. It was one thing after another, kind of.
That's frustrating. What you said before we started recording, what we don't see on the internet, and hopefully one day we'll get to see this footage somehow. You guys,
that match is there where he was tight, man. I got him in a headlock, and he got me in a headlock, and he said, you know, front face lock, and so I tried to reverse it, and he was just real tight, you know, punched me real hard, and I gave it back to him too. I gave it back to him as hard as I could. So
yeah.
Bill came up with this ideal and I don't know where he came up with this. We had to do a series of 30-minute Broadways. it's a time limit draw.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Bulldozer was 40 years old. He's about 330 pounds. He won't take a bump. How do you do 30 minutes with this guy? So we get to Arkadelphia, Arkansas, the first time we have to do these 30-minute Broadways, and they say, Larry wants to see you. Oh, shit. What does this guy want now? So I go back dressing room where they meet, and he's back there. And he tells me, my dad had just died. And he said, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. And he said, my wife just died. I said, yeah, Larry, I know. He said, I don't know why we have to do these 30-minute Broadways. He said, but I'm old and I'm fat. He said, please don't lay on me. Let's not make it hard. Let's try to get through it, as easy as we can. And we did. He was huffing after every one of them. He was huffing, but we got through them.
Jeez. Well, at some point you guys do a chain match too, right?
That was a big finale. We did a chain match, and he gets his revenge on me for me pinning him, basically, and he leaves me laying in the middle of the ring, and his valet comes running to me, and he body slams her, and I'm supposed to pick her up and carry her back to the dressing room. Now, this was going to be in Springfield, Missouri, I believe, but I had mono and I got real sick. So we did it in Springdale, Arkansas, and I was still sick. I was still not feeling good. And we get out there in this match, in the chain match, and I can't bleed. I'm trying everything I can. I don't know if it's because I've been sick or what it is, but I can't bleed. And he starts getting pissed. He starts saying, bleed, bleed. I said, Larry, I'm trying, man. He says, give me the blade. So he took the razor blade and he just rakes it across my head.
Oh.
And then he pulls it apart and he keeps telling me to pump it. And I pump it. Finally, the blood starts flowing down. And he pins me, and she comes running to me, body slams her, and I pick this broad up. She's about 160 pounds, it's not light, and carry her to the dressing room. Bill Ash comes up, looked great, everything went great, but there's one problem. We ran out of videotape just as soon as you picked her up.
No.
This was back during the days of videotape.
Oh.
So when everybody leaves, we have to turn the lights back out. We have to cut you open again, and you have to carry her back to. I said, man, I don't know if I can bleed without passing out. I'm sick, And one of the referees said, well, I got this Halloween blood from my. Bill said, absolutely not. Got to be real blood. So he cuts me back open again, and I pump it, fall down, stand back up, pump, finally gets to flowing down me, and they cut the lights out, and I pick this big broad up and carry her back to the dressing room and collapse. And that was the end of my time with Bulldozer, with Larry Wright.
That's, I mean, I want to say I can't believe that story, but I sort of do, because wrestling could be very much absurd, especially the stuff that you see off camera. But, before we started recording, one of the things that you alluded to was Bill Ash. His nickname was Wild, and it seems to me that he could have been quite the character to work for.
Bill was something else. Me and Clint, a friend of mine, he wrestled for Liam Mavia in Hawaii for Polynesian Pacific as they were closing down, and he came in to kind of help Bill out and to kind of train with us. Super good guy. Clint Terrell is his name. And Tony was with us. Me and Tony and Clint, and we were going to Bill's to train. And we had a load of liquor. I mean, we just drank a load of liquor. And Tony, of course, he smoked pot like it was cigarettes. I've never seen anybody smoke pot like this dude did. And we were so out of it, so stoned, we actually missed the turnoff and went all the way to Fort Smith, and we had to come back. So we get there to train in Paris, Arkansas at Bill Ash's, and we're about an hour and a half late. And we're stumbling out of the car. We're so messed up. And you can see the smoke coming out of his ears. You're going to pay for this. When you come here, you come ready to work. And Tony pulled out this big bag of weed. Tony pulls the weed out, and Bill Ash's eyes get real big. You know, he's married and stuff, so he can't do this stuff anymore without. And he says, well, maybe we'll just talk about psychology today. And so, I'm going back to get my wrestling boots, and I'm halfway to the house, and he beats me there and back with the cigarette lighter, and he starts smoking this shit. And the more he smokes, the more he talks, and the more he talks, the crazier he gets. And he actually tells us this story, and I'm going to try to be as delicate as I can about this, but he starts talking about sexually affecting women at ringside while he's wrestling.
Okay.
And he starts talking about this one lady in particular. And he's telling us, you know, I did this and this, and she was this and this. And he says, and I looked at her. She had an orgasm right there. So I look at Tony and Clint, and we look at each other like, man, this guy is gone. This guy is nuts. And that was Bill. Of course, we didn't dare laugh, man. It was hard not to.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't dare laugh. One guy laughed at him, and he picked up a 2x4 and chased him with it.
Oh my God. Well, Bill Ash, who definitely, you know, if I had to compare him to someone from that time period, I would say he was definitely, he looked very much like Shawn Michaels. Very much a sexy boy, you know?
Bill Ash?
Yeah.
You know what I never understood about all these guys. Now, Clint did, but all these guys were naturally big. You know, I had to go to the gym and just kill myself in the gym to get 220, 225. And these guys were naturally that big. But because they were naturally big, a lot of them, and Bill was about 215 or 220, they never went to the gym. And I never could understand that, because you know this, it doesn't matter how big you are. If you don't work out and you don't go to the gym, when you get in the ring, you're not going to look good, right. You know, and Tony was my best friend, and so much of a better wrestler than what you see on those IPW tapes. He had to wrestle Jeff. That tells you, you know, Jeff was not the best worker in the world, but Tony was such a good worker and such a good heel, but he just wouldn't go to the gym, you know, and we tag teamed a lot. And I told him, I said, man, if you just go to the gym, you know, it'll make a world of difference. And you know, a lot of guys just wouldn't spend time in it, you know, and I never, Bill was one of them. You know, I think Bill could have been, because he was such a great wrestler, he could have been a lot better than he was if he just spent some time in the gym and tried to look decent, you know.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Like, you know, not everybody has to have a bodybuilder physique, but when it comes down to it, if you're not in the gym doing cardio and at least getting some form of exercise, you know, you'll quickly get blown up in that ring. It's super important. So, like, I completely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. You know, back then you had to be big. You know, I was 215, 220, and I was on the fringe. You know, I was, but for me to and I never was a big bodybuilder, but let me tell you, I've trained just as hard as any of them bodybuilders do. I just don't have the genetics for it, you know. But you have to spend time in the gym.
100%.
Time in the gym.
100%. So let's run down some of the names from IPW, and you give me your thoughts or memories from some of these guys. And I think there's no better person to start with than someone that you brought up several times, and someone that was a good friend of yours forever, Tony the Spider.
My brother. Yeah. It was like losing a brother when he died a couple of years ago. Such a great guy. He, I wrestled Tony in a series of matches in IPW. And if you get those tapes, there's a match of me and him on there on TV. That's a real good match. And Tony, now he quit smoking pot as he got older. You know, we don't do the things we did when we were young, but he would smoke pot like cigarettes. I've never seen anybody smoke like he did. And I told him we were starting this series of matches, and I said, now, Tony, I'm not going to go out there with you stoned, man. I don't want you smoking that shit before you get in the ring with me. So I stayed with him the whole day, and he went in there sober, couldn't do nothing. He was stiff. He couldn't hear me. He couldn't do nothing. The next night, he snuck out with Bill Ash, and I caught him out there smoking that shit. Went in the ring. It was smooth as could be, man. Could work like just like Tommy Rich. Tommy Rich couldn't work unless he was drunk to a point. And once he got past the point, that's kind of the way Tony was. Tony was a great guy. There's an interview on the internet where he comes on and he starts laughing and he turns around and walks off.
Yeah.
I swear to God, that take, and I'm not exaggerating, it took 37 takes. I think it was 37 or 38 just to get that. He just couldn't talk. A lot of guys have problem talking in front of a camera. They just freeze up when that happens. And they tried every which way, and they couldn't get nothing out of him. Finally, Bill said, come on, laugh, turn around, and walk off. And that's what he did. And I think one of them, they got him to say, my name's Tony the Spider, and I'm this and this, and he turned around and walked off. But I swear to God, it took him 30 something takes just to get that out of him. Tony was a great guy, a great heel. Heel. He could get in the ring. He could go 10 minutes without even touching you and have the crowd in the palm of his hand. He was that good.
That's awesome. What did he end up passing away from?
He had a car wreck that severely injured him really bad. And he was never the same after that. And because of that, he caught diabetes. And I think it was the diabetes that finally got him. It was a shock. His daughter actually called me and told me about it. And yeah, I hated that. He was such a good guy, such a great guy,
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that I'm sure you're grateful for is not only that you guys created this friendship that lasted a lifetime, but you have those memories not only outside of the ring, but those memories and moments with him inside the ring. And I know with some of my closest friends as performers and as wrestlers, I cherish those so much. And I'm sure you feel the same way with you and Tony.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wrestled Tony probably 30 times. We would always have to let each other out 3 blocks away, because we always rode together. We couldn't be seen you couldn't be seen together back then.
Sure. Got to keep kayfabe. What about, what can you tell me about Buddy Lee, the ring announcer?
6'4". I don't know anything about him. He's a real nice guy. I just know that we all bitched when we first saw him. And we said, Bill, this is the best you can do. A guy that's bigger than all of us. He's 6'4". We're gonna have to stand on a box next to him. We're gonna look like a dwarf next to him.
Right.
Especially me. I'm 5'8.5". And but he was a great guy. He was professional, but I didn't really know him at all. Other than I remember when Bill introduced him to us and we were like, this is unbelievable. You're supposed to get a short guy.
Right. You don't want to dwarf the wrestlers. What about, you said you had to travel with Gypsy once you turned heel. What are your memories of Gypsy?
A very sweet lady. And I say lady because she was the antithesis of what she showed on camera. She was very much a lady. She was a lot older than me. She was probably 35 or so. Okay. But she was just very much a lady. Very much of a lady.
What about Odell Buckingham?
Nicest guy you ever meet in your life. Couldn't do an interview. He never did an interview. I wrestled him in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. I came back from California. Bill was initially going to use me as a jobber on IPW. And I went to California back to the guy that was going to train me, Woody Farmer, and he gave me a couple of matches out there. and I did really well. And it got back to Bill, and he said, so I'm going to use you as a heel against Odell. And so I went out to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri against him. He was a great wrestler, really easy to wrestle. And that was when Bill came up to me and he says, I'm going to use you, but you're going to have to be a baby face. I said, why? I said, I've never been a baby face. He says, well, you have to learn. He said, you're young. I need you to do it. We'll turn you later on. Just, bear with me. But
Gotcha.
Odell was a super nice guy. I actually talked to him about 10 years ago, I think it was. And I had some drug and alcohol problems. I remember him telling me, of all the people in the world, I'd never thought that would have been you. And I said, yeah, well, it was,
Yeah.
But Odell was a super good and a great wrestler.
Yeah.
Very good wrestler.
What about Rockin' Randy Bryant?
I didn't know Randy Bryant. I didn't really know him hardly at all. Bill knew him real well. Looking back at the IPW tapes, he looked like, he was a pretty good wrestler, and you could tell he spent a little time in the gym. You could tell the ones that did and the ones that didn't. But I didn't really know Randy Bryant that well.
Okay.
I mean, really.
Fair. What about the gorgeous JR? He's someone that's always intrigued me.
I wrestled JR a few times. Beat him every time. But he was really nice. He was really good in the ring. I mean, surprisingly, he had been doing it for a long time. He probably wasn't the best interview in the world, but he was really good in the ring. He'd been doing it a while, and he was smooth. And he, when Bill told him he was going to put me over, he was just as nice as he could be about it. He didn't have a problem doing it. And
Dynamite Keith Watkins.
Looks like he's methed up 24 hours a day. He's not. I'm not saying he did that.
Okay, fair.
I'm not saying he did. He just looks like it. He was just Jesus, on go 24 hours a day. Just talk a blue streak and hyper and wow, dude. Oh, that's awesome, dude. He was just that kind of guy.
Gotcha.
Good wrestler, little bitty, but good wrestler.
What about Mighty Nation?
Oh man, they came to train with Bill, and they're huge guys. Two of the nicest guys you ever meet in your life, but they just weren't. They just couldn't wrestle very good. The tall, lanky one. I don't remember which one that was, but was better than the short heavy set one. Short heavy set one. Poor guy he just couldn't do nothing. Now they could get by as a tag team good enough, but really nice guys. Huge guys. I never wrestled them except when we practiced.
Gotcha.
When they came to practice. So
okay.
It's hard wrestling somebody that big.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. What about Motley Cruz? Now I know Motley, he did a bunch of stuff before IPW. He did stuff after IPW, especially in Memphis. What can you tell me about Motley?
He's on the internet wrestling Ric Flair.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, he was a guy that had been around, and he had wrestled in Memphis and had some experience, and he was a really good wrestler, a really good heel. That's why Bill has him in just about every match, it seems like, is Motley Cruz. He was so heavy, bottom heavy, that he didn't really take the best bump. He wouldn't really get up for you very good, but he was a really good wrestler. It seems like when you worked him, he would take most of the match, but really nice guy, tough guy in real life, really tough guy, but a really nice guy. He, and a good wrestler. He was really light, other than he didn't take a real good bump, but as far as his punches and chops, he was really light. He was really good.
last on my list, what about Doc Savage? Now, I was doing some research on Doc Savage, and apparently after stuff at IPW, he went on to do some stunt work for a couple of Roddy Piper films, and he ended up being one of the guys that was in the 1999 special Pro Wrestling Secrets Revealed. So what can you tell me about Doc Savage?
Wow, I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't really know Doc Savage, and I never really got to know him, but I know he's a chiropractor. He was a chiropractor, and he came up with this health food or some kind of vitamins or some kind of deal that he was into, and him and Bill decided to try to make a marketing thing out of it. He had something Bill Ash coveted. He had money. And if you see on the IPW on the TV show, it says Unfair Advantage.
Yep.
That was the name of their little network marketing bullshit that he tried to get my dad and everybody else to invest money in. And Doc Savage could talk anybody into anything, because he sure talked Bill into letting him do that. I have to admit this, I was always a little envious, because the interview segment that he did, a visit with the doc,
yeah.
I always thought that should have been me.
Yeah.
Because I knew how good I was as a heel, and I knew I could do better than that. And I always had a little envy toward him because of that. I thought, damn, it should have been me.
it was a good segment. I felt like it was well produced. And here's the thing about the Unfair Advantage thing that you just brought up. I know there's like a telephone number and you can like call to inquire about it. I didn't know this was an actual real product. This was something they were really selling.
Yeah, I don't know how much off the ground it ever really got, but yeah, it was some kind of, he does a commercial on it.
Right.
On there. Yeah. Now it was, some kind of product that they were pushing, it was always something with Bill Ash, he's always into something. Anybody that had money, he latched on to him.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a typical promoter mindset. So IPW lasted for about a year. What's the downfall of IPW? Why does it end up not running anymore?
Death of the territories, and actually, Bill Ash just ran out of money. I think he put a lot of it toward that stupid network marketing bullshit, and he just ran out of money, basically. Our house shows were always good. We always did really well on our house shows. And I think he just ran out of money.
How many house shows were you doing during the TV show?
Well, at its height, we would, on Monday or Tuesday, we would usually do one. And once a month, we would do our TV taping. And then we would usually do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's a busy schedule. Here's one more thing I wanted to ask about IPW. We talked about it a little before we started recording. The TV show episodes that are available online, it says that it's copyright 1994, but obviously these were taped years earlier. So why is it that did these not see the light of day until 94, or what? Or did they get re-aired, or what?
They must have gotten re-aired. Either re-aired, or Bill sold the copyright, or he lost it. He was always selling everything he had. He sold his daddy's boot shop. So he might have sold the copyright, but no, they aired in 1990. They aired
Gotcha.
1990 and 91. 94, I have no idea where that came from.
Okay. So after IPW.
I'll tell you one other thing too.
Sure.
Initially it was a 30-minute show. So those shows that you see that's actually 8 shows. That's why you see Motley wrestling one time and then he wrestles again in the next match. So what you see on there, the 4 episodes, that's 8 actually. Now we morphed into an hour show, but it started out as just a 30-minute show.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. Well, so after IPW, what does the remainder of your wrestling career look like?
I go to Kentucky and I work for Del Man in mountain wrestling, and I worked for Homer Ridley also in Kentucky, and I would do shots in California with Woody Farmer for Bay Area Wrestling out there, and worked for Porter Bailey, and he would do Arkansas and some in Texas. I was busy. I was always working.
Yeah.
I was always busy. I was always working. And, unfortunately, drugs and alcohol, they ruined so many things. And, they really just destroyed it for me. They really did. I ended up, I had my last match was in, I believe, 1999 in Searcy, Arkansas. I was really out of shape. I didn't look good. I have pictures of that, but I don't look good. But drugs, and I just kind of said, well, I'll walk away from it, and you always say you can always go back to it, and I never did, and it took me 15 years to get sober, basically. Yeah. And I have been now for 8 years, I think.
That's awesome. What made you want to make that change in your life?
Just got tired of it. Just got tired, got tired of being a freak, and tired of alcohol pretty much beats up your body. It really just beats your body up after a while. And I went to a Christian rehab. I actually did a video with them about 8 years ago. Reformers Unanimous is a name, out of Rockford, Illinois, and they put it on the internet. I think they've since taken it down, but I got to credit it with the Lord. I got to credit it with Lord Jesus Christ. He turned the switch off, basically. Yeah. I don't know how to put it. He just turned the switch off, and it's allowed me to. I have grandkids, and I have such a great life, and I'm so thankful for what he's done.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. Like you look, wrestling isn't everything. I think for guys that grew up loving the business like yourself and me, it's a big deal, right? Like it's obviously a lifelong passion and love, but there's life after wrestling, and I'm so happy to know that you got grandkids now and you're doing so well. And I don't know, I can't thank you enough for taking this time to chat with me for a little bit. And
the honor's been all mine. Believe me, I'm honored. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. And like it's just been a great conversation. Do you follow the current product at all, or like when did you fall out of wrestling?
When they started doing in the middle to late 90s, when it started getting really risque, and we could never flip the crowd off or cuss at the crowd. That was called cheap heat. We were never allowed to have cheap heat, and it just changed, and I still kept track of it just a little bit. But when the working style changed, it's changed kind of, and it's like a video game now. It's like you're playing a video game. You don't see spots, you don't see like it used to be. Now, every once in a while, I'll look at the NWA, Billy Corgan, and I still have a big heart for the NWA, because it's meant so much to me, but as far as AEW and what gets me, and I don't understand it, and I know things change, but you see these guys come out there that are little bitty, you know, that are 170 pounds and 100. And I'm like, man, you know, back in the day, they made them pack weight on, you know, whether it was fat or not. They had to be, you know, you had to be a heavyweight, you know.
Sure.
That's one of the things there's just a lot of things that are different. And, you know, wrestling has always stemmed in, one of the rules is never do anything unless it could really happen, unless it was etched in reality.
Yeah.
And so much of it today isn't. It doesn't seem like, you know.
Yeah.
So
I understand where you're coming from. It's like one things that I always try to tell kids in wrestling seminars that I do is wrestling is illogical, but you have to create logic out of the illogical, right? So it's like it's one of those things where you can do a big dive spot, but you have to make sense of it, you know. And I think sometimes,
sure,
yeah, I think sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle because I think we live in an era now, Richie, where it's like gifts are a very popular thing, and just music videos. And I think some of these young guys, they watch these music videos and they see these gifts, and while what they see is cool, they're not seeing how these things should be applied to make sense.
No, absolutely. And, you know, everybody, to me, everybody looks the same. Everybody sounds the same. Everybody tries to woo the crowd. It's kind of become like lucha libre kind of. And you take a look at Magnificent Morocco and Jimmy Snuka in a steel cage, and you listen to those interviews before they walk out in that cage, and you watch that match, brother, you believed.
Yeah.
Those guys had charisma, and they were individuals, and they were unique. And a lot of that is lost nowadays because they have other people writing their words for them. You know, they're literally reading a script, and it's not their fault. They can't help it. They, you know, wrestlers, they just love the business. They want to be a part of it. But with the writers, it's just changed, you know.
For sure. I think part of
I'm 50 years old. So.
Hey, but you know what? Listen, I still agree with what you're saying. You know, the wrestlers that got the most over were the ones that said stuff that they felt and came from their heart. You know, like if you couldn't have had Stone Cold Steve Austin go out in 1996 against Jake Roberts and be given a script that said Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. You know, that was an organic, real moment. You know.
Sure. Yeah.
So I agree. That's got to change. When you talk about the NWA, which wrestlers from the NWA today are you a fan of?
Nick Aldis. I think he's a credit to the profession. He looks good. He's a big guy. He's a very good wrestler. Let's see, who else? The guy that is it Trevor Murdoch?
Yeah.
I like Trevor Murdoch. I think he's a great guy. Tim Storm. I know Tim Storm. You know, Bill Ash trained him.
Oh, really?
He absolutely did. Yes.
Wow.
And that's about all I can remember. You know, but I just see a lot of guys on there that look good, and you know that. But Nick Aldis, I think, is the cream of the crop. I think that's why he's got the belt. I think he's got it. You know,
100%.
I think he would be a world champion in the 80s. I could see him as a traveling NWA champion.
Yeah. Know. Absolutely. And I've loved the NWA product of today. The studio wrestling is a great throwback, and I'm sure it brings back fond memories for you. And listen, having this conversation with you today brought back fond memories for me, and I learned a lot about you. We talked a lot about many things during this podcast, but Richie, when you think about IPW, International Pro Wrestling, the company that Bill Ash built, the company that you competed for so long, what do you think the lasting legacy of IPW is?
The lasting legacy of IPW, honestly, will Richie ever be able to crush that apple? Honestly, listen, it was Bill Ash's attempt at the end of all the promotions that have went out of business. It was his attempt to try to resurrect that. And he got the best workers that he could get. We had a couple of names that worked for us that did shots for us here and there. Bobby Jaggers did one, Stan Hansen did one, but he got the best workers he could get. And, it's just a bunch of guys doing the best that they can, that just doing the best that they can, And I know a lot of people find a lot of the interviews humorous, and they are. I mean, this was back in the 90s, for goodness sake. But a lot of guys have trouble talking. And when you turn that camera on, you would be surprised how many people have trouble talking in front of that camera. That was the one thing that I found out doing it. These guys are terrified when the camera finally says action, and they're not reading a script like they are today. They're told, this is what you're what you're talking about, go, and they have to feel. So, it's just, guys just doing the best that they could, and some of it is humorous. And I think if you take a closer look though, and you take a look at the work in the ring, and I think you'll find that a lot of the guys were pretty good workers. Bill Ash, Randy Bryant, Odell Buckingham. There was a lot of really good workers there. Motley Cruz.
Absolutely. You've been through so much in wrestling and in life. Today, what inspires Richie Rouge? What keeps you going?
My grandkids, and the Lord has been so good to me. So good to me. I should have been dead so many times, and he's hung in there with me, and his grace and his goodness is what inspires me, and those adorable grandkids that I just love with all my heart. They'll change your life.
I'm sure. It's really been an honor and pleasure to talk with you today. I can't say that enough. I'm glad that you're in good health and that you've got a beautiful family, and I really appreciate you sharing these memories with me. And do you think that at any point you're going to be able to squish an apple?
I don't know. I'm still trying. I got a whole bag of them up there on my fridge, so maybe I'll let you know if I ever succeed.
Yeah, okay. I'll hold you to that. And listen, too, I want to point out before I go, you're in tremendous shape. We waited until after you went to the gym for this interview, so you're still in the gym rocking it.
I am, man. I work out. I've been hitting the weights now for about 4 years, so I'm gonna do it till I can't do it anymore.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Richie, thank you again, and I hope that we stay in touch, man. I really appreciate your time.
I want to stay in touch with you. I really do.
Thank you so much, Richie.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
He talked a little bit about training with Jumpin' Jeff Farmer, and something that I didn't mention to Richie.
Is this the point where I do the 3 things?
No, you're not going to do 3 things because we've already gone long.
What?
But also, I mean, you just get a longer version over on Patreon, patreon.com/irononwrestling. So, but you're really getting a long version over on iTunes as well. So I hope you guys appreciate this. But for those of you that have stuck around and tuned in for this little IPW history, I want to let you guys know that I did find and locate Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. And for the past couple weeks, I've been communicating with him. And I was trying to get him on the podcast, but he's a little shy about doing a podcast. And quite frankly, he said he's a little embarrassed because over the years, Jumpin' Jeff Farmer has suffered a lot of concussions, not just within wrestling, but other things in life. So while he wasn't comfortable doing a podcast, which I can respect and understand, Jeff was kind enough to take the time to write me a long email, a prepared statement, if you will, that he wanted me to read to his wrestling fans that have been wondering about his whereabouts for the past 15 years on the internet. So are you ready for this prepared statement?
Yes.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jeff Farmer. Some of you may know me as Jumpin' Jeff Farmer. It has been brought to my attention that there are some people out there that have been wondering what happened to me. To those people, please allow me to say thank you. I am honored that you even remember me. I got into pro wrestling in 1984 on a dare from some of my buddies. We used to watch the Monday Night Wars with the WCW and WWF. One day, my boss brought an ad that was in the paper. The ad read, "Do you think you're bad? Do you think you're hot stuff? Do you think you've got what it takes to be a professional wrestler? If so, be here at this date and this time." Needless to say, after some ribbing from my buds, I went. When I got there, I was immediately intimidated. Here I was, a scrawny country boy weighing 165 pounds, looking at a sea of men weighing around 210 to 350 pounds. First thing I thought was, what the hell have I gotten myself into? We were at a gymnastics gymnasium at the time, and it just so happened that I'd been into gymnastics in high school. I looked around and I saw the gymnastics equipment and began playing around on some of the equipment. They were pairing the guys up to wrestle each other amateur style to see who had what it takes. Well, everyone else was watching, and I was playing on the equipment. Needless to say, they picked the smallest guy to wrestle me, who just happened to be 210 pounds. At the time, I wasn't big enough or strong enough to hold him down, but he could not hold me down either. This event was sponsored by a man known as Doc Kovac. He owned a pro wrestling school in Memphis on Beale Street. He approached me and asked me where I learned how to do all of those things on the gymnastics equipment, and did I think I could do the kind of stuff off of the ropes in the ring. Of course, I said yes, and so my journey in pro wrestling began. I started traveling to Memphis from Jacksonville, Arkansas, to train with Doc Kovac and others. After about a year of training, I started traveling around working some different organizations here and there. There was not a lot of money to be made in those days, so you also had to have a regular job. I was a pipeliner and traveled considerably. One of the luckiest days of my life was the day I met Randy Poffo, also known to many as Macho Man Randy Savage. It was through Randy's encouragement that I actually continued in professional wrestling. I thought about quitting many times. Money was not good. Getting beat all the time and endless hours on the road can take a toll on you. I was honored during those years to have shared the privilege of meeting many of my heroes, such as Jerry Lawler, Kamala, Birdman Coco Beware, Outlaw Ron Bass, Ric Flair, Junkyard Dog, Bret Hart, Lex Luger, as well as many others. I spent 14 years doing something that many people only dream of doing. I am honored to say that I was even a small part of it. I may have never made it to the big time, but yes, just like anyone else who has ever traveled the road, I have a lot of stories to tell. Just like every thrill seeker in this world, I have done everything I possibly could to get that adrenaline rush. Motorcycling, bull riding, bronco riding, skydiving. In 1998, I got hung up on a bull after being knocked out when we met heads. That was the only time I'd ever been to the hospital. Little did I know that it would also spell the end of my wrestling career. I spent 14 years taking beating after beating and never had a single major injury. One ride on a bull, and I had 3 cracks in my cheekbone, dislocated shoulder, 3 cracked ribs, and messed up my knee and ankle. My final match was only 2 weeks after this accident. I got an offer to do a show that I couldn't say no to, and unfortunately it was one of the worst performances of my life because I was in more pain than any man deserved to feel. After being thrown over the top rope and hitting my head on the guardrail, I got another concussion and decided it was time for me to retire. At 38 years old, I could no longer keep up with the young bucks and the injuries were becoming too much to stand. It was definitely time to go. To all of you who wondered what happened to Jumping Jeff, I tell you, I am alive and well in Como, Mississippi. I am living my dream working with horses and living the simple life. And at 60 years old, it's about damn time. Yours truly, Jumpin' Jeff Farmer.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy story.
Yes, and he's, just living the simple life. But the most astonishing part to me is that he's 60 years old.
Yeah, well, wait till you see these photos that I'm going to post on social media of Jumpin' Jeff
I
Farmer.
saw one.
He does not look like the Jumpin' Jeff Farmer that we've seen in these videos from
Hell
IPW.
no. He looks like he could go right now. I'd book him for a show. Would you? If you and me were booking a show right now.
In one word, yep. I would book Jumpin' Jeff Farmer.
Fucking A, man.
Listen, if you don't know anything about IPW and you just know what you heard today, I encourage you to go seek out Honeydew Wilkins' YouTube channel and check out International Pro Wrestling. When you talk about Jeff Farmer, Bill Ash, Richie Rouge, of course, the Mighty Nation, Doc Savage, there's so many great characters.
The Spider?
Tony the Spider. Rest in peace, my friend. Rest in peace, Tony the Spider.
That was a heartbreaker when you reached out and tried to get an interview with him.
Well,
we found out he had passed.
Yeah, so I just we found out today there's more depth to these stories than we thought, and guess what?
What?
For all you people that want more IPW, I want to let you guys know that through my research, I did find the production company that filmed IPW back in 1990 or 91, whatever year it was, and they believe that they have the footage of the entire year of IPW, and I hope to have that in my possession soon, and I'm hoping that I can get an interview with those two so we can dig a little deeper into the history of IPW. So hopefully in the next week or so, I'm going to have them on the show. We're going to talk more IPW, and we're going to find out where the hell this footage is, because there's a year of wrestling with Tony the Spider and Richie Rouge turning heel and Jumpin' Jeff Farmer that I need. Oh, yeah, he turned heel. And he talked about it on the podcast.
Oh, spoiler alert.
Well, we're going to see all of that in the near future, hopefully. But that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you enjoyed this ridiculous trip down memory lane with IPW and talking about some of the jobbers of the past. And if you're not following us on social media, you should be at Iron on Wrestling. Make sure you're following me on social media at Gregory Iron on Twitter, at Gregory_Iron on Instagram. Find me on Facebook as well. And if you're going to be negative on Twitter, I'll just mute you because I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of being blocked. So, maybe don't be a piece of garbage. And you can book me for pro wrestling, motivational speaking, which is something I love to do, and pro wrestling seminars, other stuff through my direct messages on social media, or you can email me directly at Gregory_Iron at yahoo.com. Also go to ProWrestlingTees.com/GregoryIron if you want to buy any Gregory Iron or Aaron Bauer shirts, or if you want to buy a Iron on Wrestling podcast shirt. Also DM me. We have plenty in stock. I don't have a store set up right now, but if you message me, we can work something out, and I'll be happy to ship you out a shirt. And Aaron, what would you like to plug?
On Instagram at Fair to Aaron, and I'm on Twitter at Fair to Air, FAIRTOAAR. And I still haven't got that OnlyFans account up yet.
It's probably for the best.
Yeah, for some reason I just can't get it up.
Okay, we're not going to talk about that. Anyways, that's the end of the podcast, and come back next week.
You took it that way.
Come back next week. Looking forward to seeing you guys back again.
Wait, we're done with the podcast already?
Yes. Well, yeah, the more you talk, just the longer the episode gets unnecessarily. Okay, there's the kiss. Here we go.
Have you ever seen a one-trick pony in the field so happy and free? If you've ever seen a one-trick pony, then you've seen me. Have you ever seen a one-legged dog making its way down the street? If you've ever seen a one-legged dog, then you've seen me. Then you've seen me. I come and stand at every door. Then you've seen me. I always leave with less than I had before. Then you've seen me, but I can make you smile when the blood it hits the floor. Tell me, friend, can you ask for anything more? Tell me, can you ask for anything more?